I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about Chase. Sir, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing great, John. Winds have settled down here in California. The fires are being contained. Shout out to all the first responders, firefighters from not only Los Angeles Fire County, but all the fire counties, and then especially Nevada, coming in and helping us out during these trying times. Especially that Pacific Palisades fire that has
Yeah.
just caused so much turmoil in my great state of California. I haven't been to Pacific Palisades. Like I'm familiar with the area, but it sucks that so much damage and destruction has been done. And shout out to the NFL too, to help raise support for those in need. And shout out to the Chargers and the Rams, both in the playoffs, but also looking to take care of the community and stuff. The fan base may not be as huge and everything for those two teams and stuff, but it's cool for them to show the support. I showed some support. I donated some stuff at the Rams facility not too long ago today. So I showed my support by giving out some toilet paper and just essential items that I feel are essential for people to need, and also got rid of some clothes that I don't need anymore too. So yeah, that's why my closet's open. I was going through some clothes that I probably won't wear and stuff. So, but yeah, so like shout out to the Rams and shout out to the Chargers. I would have went to one of the Chargers ones, as you guys know, I'm a Chargers fan, but the Rams facility is closer to my house, so it was a much easier trip to do that than go all the way down to El Segundo. Especially, I don't want to be on the roads during this time. So
Yeah. I mean, our thoughts and prayers to everybody that's been affected. Those fires are really dangerous. I have a little bit of experience actually dealing with a little bit of wildfires when I was down in um, Fort Huachuca down in Arizona for some military training. There was a bit of a wildfire that was happening, and we had to stop, like pause all of the training that was going on at this large army base and work on building fire breaks and things like that. So I can only imagine that was, I mean, relatively deserted area. I can only imagine the panic that people would be dealing with when they're seeing those fires, like quite literally outside of their homes and marching down. Like you could be looking out your window and seeing it coming down the street towards you. So our thoughts and prayers, and just whatever if this show or just football in general is a way to get your mind off of those things, if you're in that area or if you have loved ones who are in that area, even if you don't specifically live there, then we're glad to do it. Chase and I are glad to do it, and we know the NFL is glad to do it. Now, to Chase's point, the NFL is doing what it can, and it really sucks for the Rams in particular, because you worked as hard as you did towards the end of that season, really coming on, and you earned a home playoff game, and you're not going to be able to have it because of the fires, and that's something you just can't control. I'm sure Sean McVay is the kind of person that believes deep down inside he could control the weather if he really tried hard enough. But unfortunately, he cannot. And so that Rams and Vikings game will be played in Glendale, Arizona, in the Cardinals facility, Cardinal Stadium. But we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to the wild card games. We've got a lot to talk about because we've got the first and second team all pro lists. We've also got the list of coaches and GMs and assistant. I got as far as positional coaches and line coaches that were let go. So we got a lot to talk about. But let's lead off with wild card weekend. So we've got here our few. There we go. We've got our few games. You can see the list has definitely trimmed down. But we've got some good ones to talk about, and we'll start off with the Chargers traveling to Houston, Texas, to take on the Texans. This one, I feel as though the line is close out of respect for the Texans. Like I took these odds probably 3 hours ago. I pulled it from FanDuel's website. So these are very up to date odds here on this Friday, January 10th. But this does not feel as though it should be close. This is a Texans team that is really, really hampered. They have people like John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson out there trying to catch passes from CJ Stroud. And that's not a knock against either of those two players. It's just that when you're in the playoffs, that's not who you wanted to be catching the passes. Of course, you have the Nico Collinses. Of course, you have the Dalton Schultzes. But those aren't the players that you wanted. You wanted it to be Nico, Diggs, Tank Dell, and maybe you lost one of them, but you didn't expect to lose both Diggs and Dell leading into the end of the season. And here the Texans are trying to hold on with an offensive line that is having a tough time both protecting CJ Stroud and opening running lanes for Mixon. That's actually the thing that's been the most surprising, particularly because Mixon started off the season super red hot, and then he got injured. They had fill-ins in Damian Pierce. They had Abungawale, but Mixon came back, but the team that he came back to, it doesn't feel like the team that he left. They have a lot of problems on the offensive side. Now, luckily, they've got a really great defense. Their defense has been playing well, not like lights out, but they have been containing teams. But the quality of their competition hasn't always been the best. On the flip side, you've got the red-hot LA Chargers coming to town in a game where the Chargers, much like a team we will be talking about, actually two teams we will be talking about, are way ahead of schedule on the rebuild. And one thing that the other two teams don't have or didn't have was a bona fide franchise quarterback. The Chargers did when it came to this rebuild. And that's something you always want to have when you're going into a rebuild. And the Chargers do have it in the form of Chase's boy, Justin Herbert. And when you're able to draft, not from a position of, you're desperate, you're from need, but from want, then you're able to do things like trade away a second-round pick to the Patriots and get Ladd McConkey, because you know that you trust your ability to evaluate talent. And even though you have traded away Keenan Allen, you've cut Mike Williams, you can trust the process and trust that when you have that franchise quarterback, he will get the ball to those people. And it's crazy because and Chase can definitely tell us this, and he will, I'm sure, after Ladd McConkey, there's really nobody on this team that's there to catch these passes. And you have the ability to run the ball. Like, we know that Harbaugh is a great running coach. We know what he wants to do. And J.K. Dobbins has looked absolutely phenomenal. If the I don't know necessarily Chargers concerned about long-term future for J.K. Dobbins. That's going to be something to deal with in the offseason. But if the Chargers do get a running back in the draft, that person is well positioned, especially if they do bring back Dobbins, just as like a mentor role. They're like, hey, buddy, your body's holding on by a shoestring. We're giving you another year. We'll pay you, but we really want you to teach this guy, do what you got to do. But Dobbins has really electrified the Chargers running game that for a number of years outside of Austin Eckler really wasn't really there. They had Melvin Gordon, but Melvin Gordon wasn't that great. They had Eckler, but Eckler was more of that pass catching back. It wasn't a pure rushing attack. And now it is a lot more of that rushing attack with that powerful Chargers offensive line. This to me is a story of, can the Chargers O-line and the Chargers offense overcome a good to decent to good Texans defense? Because I don't really anticipate the Texans offense being able to score on people like Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, especially when you have a Texans offensive line that's really hampered. So I'm going to take the Chargers here. But, Chase, go for it.
Man, I when this season started, I was expecting 8 wins from Harbaugh. And looking at this roster, the team that he picked up, and man, who's got it better than us? Nobody. We look up to the sky, we pull down the W every single time. I have so much faith in Jim Harbaugh and what this Chargers team brings to the table. Offensively, the only struggle is if the Chargers get into they have these weird games where the offense isn't clicking. They can't seem to score.
Yes.
And then they'll have Dicker go out there 5, 6 times, and he'll nail the field goals. But 7 is greater than 3. 6 is greater than 3, because sometimes Dicker may miss an extra point. You got to score touchdowns if you want to win, and especially against this Texans team, who, yes, is really great at getting to the quarterback. They have guys like Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter. Those dudes get to the quarterback. They're going to get to Justin Herbert. They're going to give Rashawn Slater, who is kind of a little bit banged up. I mean, he was a last-minute scratch before the Raiders game, and there hasn't been really any talk about like how he is feeling throughout this whole week. So, Slater's been a little bit banged up, but that's why you got a guy like Joel Alt, who is not only tremendous at right tackle, he can play left tackle, no problem, last minute. Had a great game last week against the Raiders. But yeah, no, the Chargers, they're just kind of more clicking. Like you're seeing the offense finally like explode. Like those games against the Patriots and Raiders, they weren't really like any close games. Like once the Chargers started going, they just couldn't be stopped. And that defense for the Chargers, only 13 points allowed on the road. Like this defense is built to play on the road. At home, for whatever reason, they give up a lot of points. But
well, it's not their home. So
we're renting. We're still renting that space. but on the road they've been really, really good against opposing teams. And then also too, when I look at the Texans, I think they can definitely win this game. They can exploit the fact that the Chargers run defense, it's still kind of whatever. Big play possibilities, especially with Christian Fulton. Christian Fulton has been on and off for the Chargers at corner. That's why you've been seeing more Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still, because Christian Fulton is really the number one corner for the Chargers, with Asante Samuel Jr. still injured at this time. And it seems more of like, this is like, Asante Samuel Jr. is not being a competitor, according to Jim Harbaugh, because it doesn't seem like he is welcoming all the great young competition at corner. Alohi Gilman's coming back from injury, so the speed there is not really the same. They're going to definitely miss out on Elijah Molden, but that's why they signed guys like Marcus May, signed guys like Eddie Jackson, signed guys like Tony Jefferson at the preseason, and they said, hey, just more safety depth, the better. I think the Texans can take advantage of the deep ball against the Chargers, but against a short game, it's going to be a tough one. Deion Henley, Derwin James, those two have been tremendous in the short route game, and especially in short route coverage. Really, to be honest, I just feel with the Texans, it's like Jesse Minter's familiar with CJ Stroud. Our passing game coordinator, Shane Day, our quarterback's coach, Shane Day, coached CJ Stroud last year, so he knows all of CJ Stroud's tendencies and what he likes to do. Jim Harbaugh is familiar with CJ Stroud and what he can do. And I just feel it's one of those games where it's just like, especially because Stroud is such a film junkie. He watches so much film. He analyzes so much. I think the Chargers are going to overwhelm him. I think it's going to be one of those where it's just going to be like, this is just like playing those Michigan defenses that kicked my ass in college and stuff. Like, great. So I still like Stroud. I know a lot of concern with Stroud at quarterback right now, but I think it's just a sophomore slump, and I think next year he'll be a lot better. He hasn't shown me too many concerns in terms of arm talent to make me say that he's going to still be bad. But I think Stroud is still going to be good. But I think the Chargers are going to win this game too. I think it'll be a nice, gritty win for the Chargers. I think the Texans, I think this is going to be like how the Thursday night game went with the Chargers and the Broncos. Texans go up early. Everyone's like, oh, look at the Chargers. Oh, Herbert can't step up, and then all of a sudden 25 points unanswered. What rule are we going to what record that hasn't been done in 100 years will the Chargers break this game? Like, something like that. Like, I just think it'll be one of those games where the Chargers come in, a lot of emotion, a lot of anticipation with Jim Harbaugh and stuff, but like the Texans, being a team that's been in the playoffs before, have a playoff win under their belt with head coach DeMeco Ryans, it's going to be one of those things where continuity is important, but offensively, like you said, that offensive line for the Texans is just, oh my God, it's just horrible, man. It is absolutely horrible. Like, it's just, yeah. If your money is not going to protecting CJ Stroud next year, it's on you. And thank you so much, James. Yes, I am safe. My area, thankfully, did not catch fires. The last fires that happened, like in November, that's when those fires were close to me, but none of the fires ever came close to me. We just had like a junk fire in a town over called Simi Valley, but that was like contained in like 5 minutes. So thankfully, but yeah, and there was no grass to burn. That's the one thing I tell people. A lot of people just think California has like no grass or whatever. Like, I don't know why, they've never been here. There's a lot of grass and it burns really fast, and especially because we don't have the best resources. And this is coming from someone that used to live on a farm and knows how to irrigate grass and get rid of brushes and stuff like that. Like we don't maintain our fields, and that's why when people go, why are the fires going so crazy in California? Well, because we don't have workers or pay people enough money to to handle those brushes, to handle the irrigation that we have. Like, it's just California does not view that as a need, and that's why when fires and these crazy winds happen, fires are harder to contain because there's more brushes and with the embers and everything. Like, it's a really crazy thing, because at one point in time I did want to become a firefighter, because like it just interests me as a high schooler. And then afterwards I was like, you mean I'm not going to fight fires? I have to help old ladies when they fall and stuff. That doesn't sound like fun. Like I like, like, not to say that's not to do, but for me in my time as a young lad, I didn't think that was a fun job, to be honest. But
That's fair.
yeah, so that's why I tell people, like, a lot of people just need to understand that, like, until my state decides that these are important and not the asphalt on our roads, and they put more money into handling these fields and actually getting people to work in the mountains to get rid of some of these dead weeds and these and all this terrible grass that we have, the fires are going to spread always really fast. And that's what happened to Pacific Palisades. Pacific Palisades is a beautiful city, but it's surrounded by like mountains and grass and everything like that. But they put a lot of money into that city. They didn't put the money surrounding the city and stuff. And then unfortunately, they never viewed it as a need, and we see the results. And so that's why I tell people, it does matter what props you vote on. So read your props and make sure you pay attention to that and stuff, because it is important and stuff. And it's a shame what happened, because like I said, they put a lot of money into Pacific Palisades. It's one of those cities where if you want to still live in California, live in a nice place, but don't want to like be near the madness, that's Pacific Palisades. It's one of those cities in California, and it's still a nice, beautiful area too. So yeah.
But let me see how I can make a good transition out here. So a team that didn't have to put a lot of money into their quarterback position this year was Pittsburgh Steelers, because thankfully for them, my team, the Denver Broncos, is picking up pretty much the entire tab. And Justin Fields is still on a rookie contract. But between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, the Steelers figured this was the best shot to out of people that were available draft, all that kind of stuff, based off of where they were picking. What they wanted to do was they believed in Russ and they believed in Justin. Now, Justin Fields, whatever you want to say about his time in Chicago, that's the past. In 2024, he looked not terrible. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. He looked not terrible as the Steelers quarterback, but eventually they turned the ball over to Russell Wilson when he was healthy. And Russ took the team on a number of wins. However, those wins started to dry up towards the end of the season. It gets a little bit colder. The competition gets a little bit stiffer. Particularly for these AFC North teams, they had to do the Hard Knocks in-season AFC North, so they were playing each other a lot, and those teams really know each other well. And as the intro to Hard Knocks this season, this in-season season states, we hate them, they hate us. It's a real rivalry, and so all these teams play each other very, very closely. Even at the time, 2-something, 3-something Browns really play these teams very closely. And so the Steelers have definitely faltered on their way into the playoffs, but here they find themselves as the 6th seed. And because of that, they take on the number 3 seed, which so happens to be the AFC North champion in the Baltimore Ravens. Now, in the Steelers' defense, it is helpful that you know the team that you're playing and you know them very well. As I just stated, a lot of these divisional games, very close, and they know how to play each other. They know what they're thinking. In particular, these two teams, because they are two of the longest tenured coaches in the history currently of the NFL, present-day coaches, and they have played against each other so many times. We're getting Tomlin versus Harbaugh again. And it's a Steelers team that is more and more reliant when it comes to offense on the big play. They absolutely need huge chunk plays in order to move the ball downfield. They can run the ball to a certain extent, and they have started using Pat Fryermuth more than in previous years. So credit to Arthur Smith where credit is due. But they are still hampered by a quarterback that I told people does not want to throw inside the numbers and does not want to throw in the middle of the field. It's not even a question of whether he wants a deep shot that's in the middle of the numbers. No, he wants sidelines and he wants deep sidelines. And when you remove 50+% of a football field as from a targeted area, you are going to be hampered and you're going to be reliant more and more on downfield shots. Now, why is that interesting? Well, the Ravens just so happen to have really good DBs and safety coverage. They just happen to have Kyle Hamilton. They just happen to have these players that are Marlon Humphrey that are really good at traversing the field, and they know already from playing the Steelers twice what the Steelers want to do. So a lot of this is going to be reliant upon the Steelers defense. And the Steelers defense has been good, but it has definitely also been hit or miss. They have not been as turnover machine-y as they were last year. That's for certain. But they have been playing pretty well. They have anchored by TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. You've got Patrick Queen coming over from the Ravens from last year. They know a great deal about this Ravens offense, but it is a Ravens offense that is a lot different than how it looked before. Because you add in Derrick Henry, and these games now in January and February are the reasons why they brought Derrick Henry into this team in the first place. But part of what makes Derrick Henry great, or part of what Derrick Henry allows the Ravens to do, is open up the passing game. Lamar Jackson posting up career numbers for passing yards this year, career numbers in passing touchdowns. A lot of people say he should be the MVP. A big reason why is Zay Flowers. And Zay Flowers has been ruled out because of the injury that he sustained last week. It's really like that hurts this Ravens offense in a lot of ways because now you're relying upon people like Rashad Bateman to really step up and pick up the slack because there's only so much that Mark Andrews can do. But you are turning also to Isaiah Likely, the tight end second for the Ravens. He has definitely filled in as in the wide receiver role. And I anticipate there's going to be a number of 2 tight end sets for the Ravens as they get both Andrews and Likely on the field at the same time to try to ease some of the pressure. But you've got Lamar. You've got the ability to run between Lamar and Derrick Henry. I don't really see – I can see scenarios where the Ravens lose this game, but I don't think it's going to be one of those scenarios that happens on Saturday. How do you feel?
Yeah, the only way I see the Ravens losing is if the Steelers win the turnover battle. But even if the Steelers win the turnover battle, the ineptitude of that offense is just showing right now. Like, it's the Russell Wilson experience. I've been telling people this since I saw his a little bit of decline in Seattle. He has 2 throws now. Deep shot, check down. Deep shot, check down. He does not do anything else, Russell Wilson. He has lost the mobility that he used to have that made him so great. The improvised plays that made Russell Wilson, despite his size, into one of the top quarterbacks in the league was the fact that he could improvise and that, his players could run the routes and they will catch it. But the Steelers' offense just looks inept. The defense, it's always a peekaboo defense. One week they look like, oh, yeah, who's going to beat the Steelers? They look great. Then the next, it's just kind of like, they're all right. I mean, they have names. They have great players on their team, but just all right at the end of the day. So, yeah, the Ravens, I feel like they have to be like one of the favorites of the AFC to come out. I know the Chiefs are still existent. They get the bye week. But I feel like the Ravens, especially with the roster that they constructed and just Derrick Henry, who, like, let's be real, Derrick Henry, he was the main reason why those Tennessee teams even made it to like the AFC title a couple years ago with Ryan Tannehill at the helm at quarterback.
The crazy thing is that the Ravens have beaten every team in the AFC playoffs, with the exception of the Chiefs. And if Isaiah Likely's toe is a little bit shorter, or his foot is just a little bit further back
Yeah.
in week 1, they would have beaten every single team that's in the AFC playoffs.
Yep. And
that's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, the Ravens defense is kind of a question mark sometimes. You know, like they can be a little bit inconsistent. Like this is different than most Ravens teams. We're normally used to seeing the Ravens defense having to do all the work, and you're just hoping, okay, offense, can you guys score maybe 1-2 touchdowns, help out this great defense? This now it's flipped. It's now, okay, offense, score enough points so our defense can just play safe zone the whole game, and we don't have to worry about them and coverage. So that's where the Ravens are at. I feel like familiarity is good for the Ravens in this battle. I think we're going to see a vintage King Henry playoff performance where it's just, hey, man, when the going gets tough, it's January, it's cold, you don't want to get tackled there. And when it comes to home field playoff advantages, Baltimore is one of the toughest places, man. That way they hype up that stadium and stuff. Like, out of all the playoff teams, minus the Chiefs and the Lions who are not listed, I feel like the Ravens, they're like the scariest when it's at home because it's like that atmosphere. It's like they treat it like it's like the biggest game of all time. You're just like, holy shit. Like it feels like, oh my God, you're just walking into the den. Like they turn off the lights, they play like all this crazy music and stuff. It's just like, oh God, you gotta play this team. Like that match, like, look, if Minnesota got a home game, I'd have Minnesota number 1. Like, no, that, like, even when it's a non-playoff game, I just feel like, what? You got to come play here with the horn and the skull.
Yeah,
skull. It's like shit. But the Ravens, freaking scary. So I just think the Ravens, and especially it's a night game, so it's going to even be more scary, more impactful. I can see the Steelers definitely like giving them a challenge. But I do feel like they have to win the turnover battle, but they have to score touchdowns. If you're not going to score touchdowns, it's the same what I said with the Chargers. You cannot do this. Oh, well, Clint Boswell went 5 for 5. 6 is greater than 3. Just because Clint Boswell got you 15 points, that's not enough for you to beat the Baltimore Ravens, who have shown, like, and we saw this with that Thursday night game with the Bengals. They were down 24-0. Everyone was writing them off. Oh, see, this is why Lamar is ineffective. Oh, Derrick Henry. Oh, they thought he was a game changer. And the Ravens, bam, 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 bam. And it was just like, what? They just scored like that. And by the end of the fourth, we were going into a tied ball game. So that's why with the Ravens, it's just they can score fast when needed. And, you know, yes, missing Zay Flowers stinks, but Rashad Bateman has stepped up. Mark Andrews is still Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely is good. They'll find a random ass wide receiver, some random dude I never heard of. Maybe someone that I saw in college, and I was like, wait, he's on the Ravens? Oh wow, like he's good, like, you know. So yeah,
it is definitely a situation where the Ravens feel as though between them and one of the teams we're going to talk about next, feel like the AFC's team of destiny for this season. You know, it is a crazy situation for the Steelers, because you're looking at it going, man, this could have been us. We had control of the division for so long, and then it slipped through the fingers. And that's football. That's how it happens. But let's move on to the next game. You know, Chase for weeks was trying to tell me Broncos were going to be in the playoffs, and I was like, hey, buddy.
This is before. Let's keep it on record. This was before the winning streak and everything. I was on that Broncos going to make the playoff train. I said, "Hey, Broncos could actually make it." I was on that train.
I said to them, listen, they're stacking wins, because to your point, it was around the time of that win streak was starting, and I was saying, but I know what's coming at the end of the season. I can see, you know, those last 3 games. I know it's going to be Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs. And I know they're getting a week 14 bye. I get it. But this is not an easy walk to the playoffs. And sure enough, it got to the point that you and I were talking to each other. We were saying, you know, a lot of this can come down to whether the Chiefs are going to be resting their starters.
Yep.
And I've said to you, I really don't want it to be a situation where the Chiefs are resting their starters because I want it to feel like they earned it versus, you got in just because the Chiefs were resting some of their players. And now the Chiefs were not resting all of their starters. Let's just be completely 100% here.
They weren't.
They were resting obviously like the big names like the Kelseys, the Hopkins, the Worthies, the Mahomes, but the majority of that offensive line was playing. They had to keep Carson Wentz upright because God forbid anything happens to Mahomes in the playoffs. If anything has happened to Carson Wentz against the team that's leading the NFL in sacks, then now you're turning to the practice squad QB because they only have two quarterbacks in the roster, Mahomes and Wentz. So, Denver does what it does. They're in the playoffs. Okay. And one thing I just want to state, because we were just talking about the Steelers and we're talking about Russ. Another thing that people were saying about, Russ wasn't the problem in Denver. Russ wasn't the problem in Denver. I just want to point out something really quickly. Russ played 15 games last year in Denver, and he had 45 sacks. And that offensive line, despite the amount of money that has been spent on it, was ranked towards the bottom when it came to PFF rankings and things like that. A lot of different metrics that were used. It was ranked towards the bottom after the 2023 season. This year, the Denver offense is number 1 in pass protection. And Bo Nix has only taken 24 sacks, and he's played 17 games. So how is it that this offensive line that did not change, there was no departures, there was no additions really to this offensive line. How is it all of a sudden there's 20 fewer sacks? Meanwhile, Russell Wilson has played 11 games for the Steelers and has been sacked 33 times. He's played fewer games, 6 fewer games than Bo Nix, and has been sacked more times than Bo Nix. That doesn't make any sense unless maybe Russell Wilson had a problem when it came to holding the ball too long. Mm-hmm. Now, why is that going to be important in this game? Because Bo Nix doesn't have a problem getting the ball out very quickly. This is a Broncos offense, yes, 38-0 against the Chiefs, whatever. But this is a Broncos offense that has been on fire. They have definitely gone in the tank in third quarter situations, but they have come out firing on all cylinders. And it's interesting because originally they were not a good first half team from the offense. They would put up a few points here and there, but they actually were going on a bit of a streak there of not scoring in the first quarter whatsoever. They have turned it around, but part of why they're able to turn it around is the belief that they will find a way. And one thing that can reassure you about that is when you have one of arguably the nastiest defense in the entire football league. This is a defense that is leading the NFL comfortably in sacks. It is doing great work when it comes to turnovers. You have stars, people who are becoming stars almost overnight in Nick Bonino, Zach Allen, Jonathan Franklin Myers, names that were not really known. I know I showed you an NFL media. That wasn't a Denver-made thing. It was an NFL media-made poster for just for this game, and it showed in the background coming forwards a giant, frost giant, Josh Allen, and in the front are all these miniature, smaller Denver defensive players. And there's only a couple people that actually have their names on the back of the jersey. Really, it's just Pat Surtain. Everybody else has question marks because nobody really knows who these people are. I know who they are because I follow the team, but the majority of people don't really know who these players are. But this defense has done really well when it comes to containing quarterbacks, when it comes to stopping the run. And part of why they're able to do that is because half of the field is taken away. Quarterbacks had a lower passer rating in 2024 throwing against Patrick Surtain than if they had just thrown the ball in the dirt. If they had done nothing, instead of throwing to Pat, just throwing it into the ground on an incomplete pass, they would have a better passer rating than throwing it against Pat Surtain. That entire side, whatever side he's on, is gone. You don't really have that. So when you have something like that, that allows, we talk about, a lot of times people don't know why did this guy get sacked? Why did this guy get sacked? Because the cameras, when you're watching, are following the ball. But if you do all 22, things like that, you understand what's called a coverage sack. And Denver has gotten a lot of coverage sacks because Pat Surtain, Riley Moss, the rookie, Adams Dane, really, really great players. Brandon Jones on safety. That's going to be really important because you're going up against the guy who is either the MVP or the MVP runner-up. If people are going to say Lamar is the MVP, and he's doing it with a cast of characters that, similar to the Broncos defense, are relative no names. Like, yes, you have 5-time Pro Bowler Amari Cooper, but can a lot of people name the guy after him? Not that many people know about Khalil Shakir. Not that many people, like, you may know Keon Coleman's name because he was just drafted, and people were like, oh, that's going to be the replacement for Stephon Diggs, so like they know the name. Dalton Kincaid hasn't really done much, but in and out of the lineups. Dawson Knox filling in. A lot of it has been passes to James Cook, to Ray Davis. And that's going to be the thing that Denver has to focus on. Can you stop the pass at such a level downfield that you can still make the coverage for the short pass or the screen pass to the halfback? Because that is where Josh Allen's going to have to eat when it comes to this game. And Denver's done a pretty good job of containing quarterbacks from running the ball themselves, but it is Josh Allen, and there's a reason why he's in the running, or the favorite, depending on how you want to look at it, for the MVP. I'm going to vote. Now I'm going to vote with my heart as opposed to my head, mainly because this is and I think I've said this to you. The last time Denver had a playoff game, I had not met my wife. No. So it has been 8 years. The same year that Denver won, it was a crazy year, 2016. Denver wins the Super Bowl. Colleen's baseball team, the Cubs, win the World Series. And then in December of that year, we meet. So we had not, I've never known a year as good as that, arguably. So like I remember I came downstairs after the Cubs won the Super Bowl, and there was people just in the intersection doing donuts in their cars. And there were other cars like at the intersection, and nobody was mad or honking or anything. Like, people were actually getting out of their car and just like celebrating. And I'm like, this is downtown Chicago. Like, what? Yeah. I get it, like 108 years, but if you're not living it, you don't know what it means exactly. So I'm here, I'm in Chicago, but I'm not from Chicago. So knowing that, but I know what it feels like to have this playoff game. So I'm voting with my heart. I'm not voting with my head. I'm taking the Broncos. No. I want Chase to have to fly to Baltimore and deal with
all
that shit he was just talking about.
I'm changing my pick to the Steelers. They can come to LA. The Steelers can come to LA.
All that shit he was talking about the Ravens and the environments and all that kind of stuff. That's what I want. That's what I want Justin Herbert to have to deal with next week. But Chase, how are you feeling about this one as we get a comment from SP3?
Shout out SP3. Yes, my family and friends are safe. Just my aunt and uncle had to evacuate, but luckily no damage done to their house or anything of that nature. And so thankfully they're safe. They were able to stay with my aunt and only like surrounding areas by their house, which was the Altadena fire that they went there. But yes, all my family and friends are safe, thankfully, from what I know, unless someone has told me otherwise. But from the people I checked up with, they're all good. Yeah, this is an interesting game. Sean Payton is a very good motivating head coach. I mean, he motivated that Saints team to get all the way to the Super Bowl and stuff. And that's one of the reasons why you get a guy like a Sean Payton. It's not just because he's a Super Bowl winner. It's because he's an overall good coach and he knows how to get the most out of his players. And, this Broncos team, it's filled with a bunch of guys where, like, besides Pat Surtain, a lot of these defensive guys, they're not all blue chip guys. They traded away all their blue chip guys. They traded away a Bradley Chubb because they're like, oh, well, he's great. He's going to be hopefully a good sack getter, but we don't need him no more. Let's trade him and get some capital at his highest. So it's just been a bunch of guys that, have been kind of like turned away from their teams or getting second chances. And, they have been one of the better defenses in the NFL. They've suffered some key injuries and they haven't lost a beat after those key injuries. And, offensively, Bo Nix has shown that, he's a good quarterback in the NFL. Will he be a top 10 quarterback? That's up to Bo Nix to improve. But in terms of starters, like it's like, yeah, I'll take Bo Nix as a starter. There's nothing wrong with him as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Offensively, they showed that they can go with some of the best in the league. I mean, they were up on the Chargers at that Thursday night game, and then the Bengals, they went tit for tat with Joe Burrow, which is very impressive. And they don't really have a strong running game behind Bo Nix. It's really just like, hey, can we get maybe one of you guys to break off a 20-yard run? Like that would definitely help us out. But
actually, I was watching Shellereth, who played for the Broncos, breaking down a preview of the game, and he said the two things that any rookie quarterback really wants, that a GM tries to get them, is a strong running game and a good tight end. Denver has a blocking tight end as the tight end one, and here's a fun fact. Denver has 10 rushes of 20 yards and more. 6 of them are Bo Nix's.
Yeah. So Bo Nix has kind of been doing. Yeah, Bo Nix has been delivering, and I just feel it's from a talent perspective, like the Bills. Like a lot of people tend to forget, and this is why I'm not really like high on the Bills compared to everyone else. Talent does matter in the NFL, and when I look at the Bills and the Broncos roster, I'm like, the talent level is not that far off. Like the only difference is that Josh Allen is one of the top 5 players, not just quarterbacks, players in the league. Like that's a huge discrepancy here, is that Josh Allen's a top 5 player. But then they have Pat Surtain on the other side of the ball, who's a top 10 player in this league. So it's like talent gap is really not that huge when you look at this roster overall. I mean, James Cook, yes, he's better than pretty much a lot of the Broncos' offensive weapons. But I look at the Bills and I say to myself, if there's a team that can be caught, it could be them against the Broncos. The way to get after the quarterback, the way the Broncos play, I feel matches up very, very well with the Buffalo Bills. But then I remember the Bills have Josh Allen. And Josh Allen, especially against a team like Denver, who, both you and I, we have this in common, Denver and the Los Angeles Chargers, they'll bring up a lot of the times that we just beat up on the bad teams and we have not won against a over 500 team. Now the Chargers sneaked in with a couple wins over 500 teams, one of them being the Denver Broncos. Winning takes time, and especially learning to win. And then this is going to be a tough atmosphere for Bo Nix. It's going to be a huge test for him early. I'm sure Von Miller also has some, I don't think he hates Denver, but I think he wants to,
he loves Denver. He considers himself a Bronco.
Yeah.
Like after that game against Kansas City happened, he did the Wesley Snipes in New Jack, the gun meme, and he was just like, I'm sorry, it has to come full circle.
Yeah, like Von Miller, one of the reasons why they got him and stuff is that, hey, we don't need you to be Von Miller for 18 games. Can you be Von Miller for the 3 to 4 games we need you to be Von Miller? The Super Bowl MVP, the one that snatched Cam Newton's crown of being the best player in his draft class. Can you be that guy just for those 3 to 4 games? And I just feel the Bills, I can see this game being close, but then that one Josh Allen play happens where it trends over social media. Only Josh Allen can make this type of throw. This is the only throw that Josh Allen can make and stuff like that. Like, that's where I feel like the Bills will win. I think they have more big play threat capabilities than the Broncos. The Broncos are just missing, Cortland Sutton can make great contested catches. Marvin Mims can break out for a big gain. But other than that, those happen every so often. Josh Allen doing something incredible week to week, it happens pretty often. But I wouldn't be surprised if Denver kept this one close. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver does win. But I'm going with Buffalo here just because Josh Allen is just a talent discrepancy. But overall, I don't think the Bills are as great as people make them out to be. If you especially look at that roster defensively, I still think they're missing a lot of holes. I think a lot of their top defenders have taken a step back in terms of progression and what you want to see. Like Matt Milano was talked about as one of the top linebackers in the NFL. Yeah. Yes, he's been kind of injured, but now he just feels like any other linebacker in the NFL. He doesn't feel like that same scary run-stopping, pass coverage linebacker that we saw last year from him. And maybe it's the injury, maybe that's why he's a little bit slower. But and I like this battle because it's strength on strength. It's going to be the Bills, who run the most offensive line packages in the NFL. Sometimes they have 7 of them out there, taking on that ferocious Denver pass rush and trying to see, like, who's going to win. Who's going to win? Is it that ferocious Denver pass rush, or will it be Josh Allen? Like, and the one thing about Allen, he's a gamer. He's not going to be afraid to throw out PS2 like most players. Most players are going to be like, I won't throw this side of the ball. But Josh Allen, Shakir Coleman, who I think PS2 will most likely be shadowing because they'll trust Riley Moss to be on Amari Cooper. I do think Josh Allen will try to force his way to find those guys with the ball and get that momentum. But talent-wise, if you look at these rosters, just overall rosters, it's very, very close. It honestly is like much closer than people think. Like, if Josh Allen was on the Broncos, everyone would choose the Broncos 100% because it's Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I think I know the number one, but I'm pretty sure it's also the other one of the others is top 10. But the two, so definitely for certain, the longest air yard pass this season, Bo Nix to Marvin Mims. So big playability is there. That's definitely what Denver was missing. So it's gonna be an absolute fun game to watch. And like similar to what we were talking about earlier with the rebuild of the Chargers, Denver has its franchise quarterback. Like, now they've got it. And if this was happening next year, or, if this game was happening next year, but Denver now has Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren and Tez Johnson, it's a completely different ball game. And I think that's where they're going to be going in the draft. But it's a house money game. Like, if they lose, win, lose, or draw, like, it doesn't, I mean, there can't be a draw. It's the playoffs. Yeah. But I mean, win, lose, draw.
The only thing you don't want to see is Bo Nix. Yeah, you just don't want to see Bo Nix throw like 5 interceptions this game. Is Bo Nix plays a good, clean playoff game, looks competent, and you say, yeah, you know what? We lost, but shit, man, we made the playoffs, and this is great progression for Bo. But if Bo Nix throws for like 5 interceptions, and you're like, for 5, that's kind of rough.
But let's turn to a team that is hoping that its quarterback will not be doing that, because they've definitely seen things like that happen, because he is known to be a bit of a gunslinger. And that is the quarterback for the Packers, Jordan Love, going to Philadelphia. Similar to, we just had the 7 versus the 2 in the AFC. Now we have the 7 versus the 2 in the NFC. Sunday is our NFC day. It was the back half of Sunday. But here we have the Packers, who they had a decent run game in 2023. Nothing crazy. Had Aaron Jones, let him go to Minnesota. But they went and got Josh Jacobs, and that was the reason why they were comfortable letting Aaron Jones go. And it was interesting because you would think you've got the gunslinger of Jordan Love, you've got the Jaden Reeds, the Christian Watson, the Romeo Doubs, the Dontarius Wicks. Like, you've got pass catchers, not like super great ones, but you've got pass catchers. And some guys are starting to break out. You get that, second or third year bump. Okay, but why get Josh Jacobs? They wanted to take the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. That's the reason why. They were like, hey, if we could run the ball and not have to worry as much. I mean, Matt LaFleur is not an idiot. So he's saying to himself, I can reduce the number of picks that Jordan Love is going to throw if I reduce the number of times that Jordan Love has to throw. So he says, okay, let me get this guy, this running back. And it's gone pretty damn well, to the point that even when Jordan Love was injured and they had Malik Willis in, they were still winning games.
Yeah.
So you can win with Josh Jacobs, and then you add in all of these players. Now, one thing that's going to be working against the Packers is that Christian Watson is going to be out. He's not going to be playing in this game. But Jordan Love will be playing in this game. He had hit his elbow. They thought there was potentially like a nerve injury, but, funnily enough, he hit his funny bone. But he will be playing in this game. And it's going to be a bit of a quarterback battle, because on the flip side, Jalen Hurts has now cleared concussion protocol and will be starting for the Philadelphia Eagles. So the question here is going to be, can this Packers defense, which is not bad but not good. It's kind of interesting. We're talking about a lot of not bad but not good defenses. There's only a few teams in this playoffs that have really good defenses. Can they stop the juggernaut of an offense that is the Eagles. The Eagles have been ripping off wins and doing it comfortably. Now, to the point that Chase was just making a little bit earlier about the Chargers and the Broncos, were they just beating up on bad teams? Maybe, but they were getting experience. And that where that experience pays off is in the playoffs. Learning how to run behind this Philly offensive line was going to be something for Saquon Barkley to learn. Yes, you can have a really great offensive line, but if the running back can't figure out which cut to make or which direction to go, none of it's going to matter. However, when you're beating up on bad teams, you can learn how to do all of those things because you have the time. You can afford to do it. And the Eagles have done amazingly well. Like for what they looked like at the very beginning of the season, this is a rematch of their Week 1 game. The Eagles and the Packers was down in Brazil.
Yeah.
Horrible this field. Is Brazil, by the Fast and Furious thing. But this is now a really powerful Eagles offense. And yes, you don't have. I don't think Dallas Goedert is playing. I think it's going to be another Grant Calcaterra. But you've got Devonta Smith. You've got AJ Brown. The question is going to be whether Nick Sirianni knows how to get out of his own way. Now he's done a really good job of that these past few games. These past like 7-8 games, he's gotten a really good job of getting out of the way. And sometimes that's just handing the ball off to Saquon. And that has definitely created some problems when it comes to AJ Brown, who wants to get touchdowns, wants to get yards, wants to do all of these things. But the Eagles are banking on a recipe of success that plays very, very well in the playoffs. Can you run the ball? Can you control the line of scrimmage? If you look at every single one of these teams that's in the playoffs and the teams that are not listed, in the Chiefs and the Lions, every single one of these teams, with the exception of one team, runs the ball really, really well. They all have some form of a power running back outside of the Bills. The Bills don't have a power running back, but every other team really does have one. Bucky Irving is a bit of a hybrid one, and Rachaad White is a bit of a hybrid one. But, by our powers combined, we create a power running back. But Saquon Barkley is different. That guy just damn near broke the single season rushing record, and the only reason he didn't is because the Eagles hadn't had a bye since week 5. If their bye week had been like week 12 or week 13, I think they would have put him out there against the Giants to get the 101 yards because he would have been a little bit more well rested. But because you've had such a long stretch, they were like, "Hey, buddy, there's no I in team." It's a great individual statistic. And, to Barry Sanders' credit, he talks about we when he says running the ball because he gives a lot of credit to his offensive line. But he knows it is ultimately an individual statistic, even if he wants to pay homage that way. But this is a game where, with Christian Watson out, I don't know if the Packers, if they get behind, if they can catch up. And the problem is that the Eagles, similar to the Lions, are really good at killing the clock. Really good. They want to. Saquon knows, hey, I get 5 yards and I go down. That's another 30 seconds. We just ran off the clock. We can just do that. And then at the same time, he also has the vision to go, yeah, but if I cut to the right, that's a lane and I'm gone. Mm-hmm. And then he just goes. And we've had a lot of games this year where Saquon has ripped off multiple untouched, like 70-yard rushing touchdowns, 50-yard rushing touchdowns. And God forbid if the Packers get behind by 2 scores. This is a game where they have to go punch for punch. And I don't think they can be able to. So I'm going to take the Eagles on this one. How about you?
Yeah, I think the Eagles are definitely going to win this game. I think that they are very happy that they got the Packers and not the Rams or the Commanders. I think, or the Commanders or the they're very happy they got the Commanders. Like they're just like not the Commanders, they got the Packers because this Packers team has been kind of like low key, like no one's talking about. They've been kind of spiraling. They're not looking like the same team that was at the start of the season. Even when Love came back, they were looking really good. A lot of people were saying, oh, like they might, Detroit and Minnesota, they might kill each other. The Packers might sneak in and win the NFC North. Who knows? And that did not end up happening. The Jordan Love in a lot of the big games that he's been has just not looked good. And then like a weird injury will always come up with Jordan Love where you're just like, wait, what happened? His ankle, his elbow, his back? Like, what's wrong with this guy? Like he always is. It just seems like a random injury just pops up. Uh Jatavion Wicks has just disappeared. He hasn't been the same receiver he was at the start of the season. Romeo Dobbs has not been good. Christian Watson was really looking like he normally does at the end of the season. Looked like, oh yeah, this is the Packers' best weapon. He goes out with the injury, and you can only do so much when you have to rely on Josh Jacobs running the ball, especially against this. The one thing the Eagles don't get talked about. We talk about the Eagles' offense and everything. This Eagles' defense is it's insane. It's a really insane defense. Like they figured out the guys that they want to start. They figure out the rotation, the substitute packages, and it's just a hard defense to stop between the two rookies and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. The defensive line stepping up with Jalen Carter having a tremendous season, and he's panned out very, very well for them. And just what they have on that team, it's like they look like one of those teams where it's just like, oh, they're a tough stop. They're a tough out. And as long as Jalen Hurts takes care of the football, doesn't do like the bad Jalen Hurts throw where he overshoots AJ Brown. Like the thing with the Eagles is they just need to keep the chemistry. You need to keep Sirianni's head a little bit low. You got to make sure Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown aren't fighting. As long as you can kind of keep the peace, I feel the Eagles have a great chance at making it all the way to the Super Bowl. And I think that this Packers game will remind people like, oh yeah, this is why the Eagles are one of the top teams in the NFL, because they can just do this, kill clock, have a great defense. Jordan Love, he's shown he'll throw a bad ball a lot of the times and stuff. I'm sure we're going to get the vintage Reed Blankenship interception where he just dives and rolls 5 times and stuff. That's all his interceptions are, just him jumping the route, diving and rolling. Like it was funny. Someone posted a highlight package of all Reed Blankenship interceptions, and it was literally the same interception every single time. I was just like, this guy literally just dives and catches it and then rolls 5 times and gets touchdown, and then they all celebrate that they got the turnover. But yeah, no, this Eagles team just looks really good, and it's just like they're one of the teams where it's just like, I feel like could go all the way to the Super Bowl on the NFC side of things. They're definitely one of the favorites, and I just think they're better than the Packers right now. The Packers, maybe at one point, they looked like a scary 7th seed, but Washington looks a lot more scarier than them right now, and they're not even supposed to be here. So,
yeah, it is a very if you're the Packers, it's kind of uncomfortable in a way because like you made the playoffs, and so like you feel happy or confident about that, but you're still looking at it going, we really were in a dogfight for this division, and things broke our way. Like we don't know what's going to happen in Chicago. We really don't. And we don't know like the idea of being able to repeat the success. That's going to be the tough thing for the Packers coming out of this game. Even if they win, it's still a question of, okay, well now who do you have to go face? Oh, Detroit. Oh, now we have to go face Detroit. Oh, this is going to be great. So, but let's talk about the team that Chase was just talking about, just brought up. Say his name, and he appears. Similar to Joe Hendry, it is Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. And if it wasn't for, God damn it, if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels and it wasn't for the Commanders, I think the rebuild or bounce back of the Denver Broncos would be like the story that is being talked about. But when you've got a team that picked second overall, and now you're in the playoffs, it is one of the best turnarounds in recent memory that I can think of. But the Commanders are doing this off of the back, or we should say the legs, of Jaden Daniels. This kid is electric. But for him, Bo would be Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, yes, there's an argument about Brock Bowers, but usually it's a QB award. But this is a situation where the Commanders, similar to the Broncos, are playing with house money because they do have similar to the Broncos, they do have a good chunk of dead cap, and you have players that want to be part of the Commanders. Marshawn Lattimore is wanting to be traded from the Saints to the Commanders. Now, did he know back then, back around week 9, that he would be able to get matched up against Mike Evans one more time? Did he? No, he didn't. Probably not. But if he did, kudos to him, sir.
Fight
Kudos
forever. Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore.
that
Lattimore, he's going to be talking shit. The minute he lines up, be like, "Oh man, you got to get that sorry ass pass to get your 1,000 yards. Couldn't be me, Brody." He talking shit, bro. Like NFL films will do random things when players retire. I really hope when Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans retire, we just get a highlight package of all their wars and battles because people don't watch them. They have been battles for years. Those two hate each other. Like it's not like, oh, this is for the love of the game. No, these motherfuckers, they don't like each other. Like Marshawn Lattimore will make sure he's lined up with Mike Evans everywhere. He does not like that guy.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you're the Commanders and you're Dan Quinn, you're like, well, of course I want Marshawn Lattimore to be on Mike Evans. Not only is he going to arguably be my best cornerback, but he knows Mike Evans the best. And that matchup, the two of them, those wars are, instant 6, 7, maybe 8-star classics, whether it's in the Tokyo Dome or not. And this is a situation where the Commanders, like I said, playing with house money. Meanwhile, they are up against a Buccaneers team that, death taxes Mike Evans 1,000 yards. And granted, he got it off of, if you want to call it a bullshit play, whatever, but he got it. That's the story. The story is that he got it. And
I mean, he missed some time. I'm fine.
Yeah, no. That's what I'm saying.
If Mike Evans played 18
don't get me wrong.
He wasn't there.
To me, it's not a bullshit pass because he missed time. I'm like, they were hyper targeting this man. There was in a couple games after he came back, he would have like double-digit targets, and he would have double whatever the next person had on the target share list for the rest of the Buccaneers. Now, that is all. There's also a reason for that as well, because you lost Chris Godwin. But luckily, you guys knew, the Buccaneers front office, you knew that Chris Godwin may not be back on this team in 2025. So you said, hey, we gotta get some fresh blood in here. And you went and drafted Jalen McMillan. And Jalen McMillan has looked really good as the season has gone on. They did turn a little bit to Trey Palmer, to Sterling Shepard, because those are veteran guys. They're like, let's try to get people that are already well versed in the NFL, going up against corners and safeties and linebackers. Let's get some of these guys in here. But we do want to get Jalen McMillan going. And eventually they did. And this guy has hit the ground running. And also, they hit on, I think it was third round, Bucky Irving has been one of the best, to me, the best rookie running back in the league this year. Like, yes, there's Tyrone Tracy, and Tyrone Tracy is doing a shitload on an offense that has nothing besides him and Malik Neighbors. But what Bucky Irving has been doing has also been really, really good. And yeah, it's a better team, but let's give credit where credit is due. Bucky Irving is also fighting for touches when it comes to him and Rashad White. Mm-hmm. And really, Tyrone Tracy, like, you were going to be able to beat out Devin Singletary. But Rashad White fits a role on this team as that elusive pass-catching back. And originally they thought, okay, we want to take some of the load off of Rashad. We want to get Bucky Irving going. And Bucky is just taken to this role absolutely well. If I was Tampa Bay, I would not be surprised if Rashad White, walks and they draft somebody in like maybe now the 5th or 6th round, because they can afford to go, hey, Bucky's the guy. At least for the next 2 years or so, we know running back is taken care of. And it's a situation where the Commanders, this defense, we're going to go over this all-pro list in a few moments. And it's been, I was kind of surprised as I'm writing it out. There's some Commanders names on there, but the Commanders defense has not been good. Like, it has not been very well heralded. And part of bringing in a coach like Dan Quinn is saying, this is the talent we have. Let's make this as good as we can while we wait for the draft and free agency and build it up through there. Because first thing we need to do is hit on this quarterback. And they damn sure hit on the quarterback when it comes to Jaden Daniels. This is a game where the Commanders are absolutely playing with house money. I love this game for them as just similar to the Broncos game, like win, lose, or draw. Like, you just feel good. But the Buccaneers have a lot of firepower. Whether it's Bucky Irving, whether it's Mike Evans, whether it's Jalen McMillan, all of it comes down to Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield has been playing some of the best football that we have been seeing, whether it's from Baker Mayfield or anybody, in some time. You know, he was in MVP conversations for a number of weeks for the first half of the season. And then, you know, the Josh Allenses and the Lamar Jacksons, just because of who they are. Like, we're giving credit and respect where it's due, just because of who they are, separated themselves from the pack. But him, the Darnolds of the world, they were putting up MVP numbers, and you could argue that Baker still has put up MVP numbers, even though the focus has shifted to Allen and Lamar. I'm going to take the Buccaneers, but this is a game that I can easily see the Commanders winning, because I don't know if you guys, or Chase, whether you watch the Gridiron Heights, but they were doing the playoff kind of video, and Dan Quinn, like the comic or the video part for the Commanders is there's all these like people attacking the Commanders, and there's just Jaden Daniels with headphones on, and Dan Quinn like runs up to him and goes, Jaden, what's the plan? Like, what do we got to figure something out? And then Cliff Kingsbury comes over and he says, oh no, Dan, Jaden doesn't get started until the last 30 seconds of the game, and then he does something you've never seen before, and then we win. So like that, there's an easy situation where that happens. So I'm going to go with the Bucs, but I can easily see the Commanders winning. How about you?
Yeah, man. Shout out to Dan Quinn. He's not getting talked about the most because obviously Lions and Vikings have had great seasons. Jim Harbaugh's around and he picks the Chargers. But, man, Dan Quinn came in. Let's be real. And Dan Quinn as the head coach, like, no one was that excited. Washington Commanders fans weren't that excited. They were just like, okay, yeah, he was the DC for Dallas for so many years, but Dan Quinn. But Dan Quinn does what Dan Quinn does best. I don't give a fuck about the offense. Give me a nerd. Kingsbury, what are you doing? You call the plays. I don't care what you do on offense. Let me focus on this shitty defense. Turned around this Commanders defense that horrible, porous. Like, no way this defense should be what it is. And some games, yeah, they look bad, but other games, they looked really, really good. I feel bad for Dan Quinn because he's not getting the flowers that he should deserve this season. Like a lot of it more is going to Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. Well, let's give our flowers to Dan Quinn. He's the captain of the ship. Yeah, you know, the crew is only as good as their captain, and Dan Quinn is a great head coach in the NFL, and I feel like he deserves his flowers. But yeah, this is going to be a tough game for the Commanders. I actually like the Buccaneers a lot. I think if you're a gambler and you're looking at that sleeper team to make the Super Bowl, and not only just make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, I love this Buccaneers team. Like, I love the continuity that this team has. They have a lot of guys still from that Super Bowl roster still in place. I think they have a capable enough quarterback that can go on a Cinderella run and Baker Mayfield. We've seen it before in many years. Joe Flacco, Eli Manning. Baker Mayfield has that kind of moxie to him. They have an underrated run game with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. And I mentioned the defense. That defense is just really good. It's just more on Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is my only, like, I don't know. Can Todd Bowles be the Todd Bowles that is a good head coach, or is he going to be, we're blitzing every fucking play? I don't care. We'll leave someone open. We blitzing. And I think this is going to be a tough game for the Commanders. I think this is, like, as much as a great story is, Jaden Daniels is absolutely like appointment television if you're a football fan. Like, the way that he handles an offense is just so, and this goes for Bo Nix too. I think now, especially for the NFL draft, as people assess and they go, I don't know, this guy's like 24 years old. Like, should they draft him? I feel like we should look at college starts and really say, like, hey, you know, these two guys like started a bunch of games. It wasn't like they were Brandon Weeden, who was 28 and freaking played for Oklahoma State for one season and showed that he was better than a lot of like 19 and 20-year-olds and stuff. Like, these guys were consistent starters. Bo Nix at Auburn going into Oregon, Jaden Daniels at Arizona State going to LSU. You know, like consistent starters, guys that had a lot of reps in college. Jaden Daniels plays like, yeah, he's been in the league for a year or two. Like, is he as polished as someone that's been in the league for a year or two? No, But does he play like he's been in the league for a while? Yeah, he does. So he's absolutely fun. Commanders are such a fun story. They're like, beside, if the Lions weren't a team that has never won the Super Bowl, these would be the darlings in the playoffs. Like Jaden Daniels is fun. He runs, good arm. Don't really have the best talent around him. A lot of these players have fun, interesting stories on the Commanders. But I think the Buccaneers will win this game. I think Baker Mayfield, he's playing with a nice little chip on. I love Chippy Baker. Chippy Baker, I always was a Baker truther. I always liked Mayfield coming out of college and stuff. Like, I felt the Panthers gave up on him way too early. I felt the Browns gave up on Baker Mayfield way too early. But I like the continuity that this team has. They have just a lot of guys that were on that Super Bowl team from a few years ago and Super Bowl winning team. Minus the Chiefs, the Buccaneers are former Super Bowl champion. I know people are going to say the Eagles. A lot of those guys are not on the Eagles roster no more. A lot of those guys retired, left. The head coach is not even the same head coach. Yes, Sirianni was on the staff, but he was there. Buccaneers, a lot of those guys have won, and they're a good team. And when you look at, if you ask Detroit and you ask Philadelphia, what's the one team you don't want to see in your bracket? I bet you they'll say Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has beaten Detroit. Tampa Bay has beaten the Eagles. Not only that, last year when Tampa Bay was coming in and everyone was like, oh, the Eagles should just stomp them and stuff, Tampa Bay beat the Eagles. Tampa Bay was literally just a few plays away of going to the NFC title against San Francisco last year. This is not a bad team. This is a really, really good team. And I think they're very, very sneaky. It's one of those teams where it's just like, you're just like, oh, really? Like, are they that good? Like, inconsistent, yes. But when they're on, Tampa Bay can be a very, very scary team. And I think for these 3 to 4 games, those are the most important games. Take whatever you saw against them against Atlanta out of your head, that they gave up 500 yards to Kirk Cousins and stuff like that. Take anything that you see from their regular season. Let's take it away. Let's look at this 3 to 4 game sample size that they will have. I feel like if you get Tampa Bay rolling just for 4 games, that's a tough team to stop. That's a team where if you're the Eagles, you're praying. Like, you didn't want to face the Commanders round 1. That's like, fuck, we have to face this good team round 1. That's tough and stuff. But you're okay with facing the Commanders round 2. I would not be comfortable if I'm Tampa facing the Eagles facing Tampa Bay in round 2. Like, that's a tough team. And I think that's like my favorite sleeper team in this playoffs. I know people are going to say, what about the Chargers? Like, Chargers still have a long way to go talent-wise to catch up. They do have a lot of good veterans, but Tampa Bay, I'm like, there's a team that I could see like ruining everyone's like love. Like, if you want to be the smart guy in the office, like if you're doing an office pool and stuff and you want to just outthink your friends, make one bracket what you believe in, and then just go with the bracket where you have Tampa Bay winning it all. Because that's a team where I'm like, if the gears start turning, if Baker just bakes and doesn't, if Baker bakes and doesn't have the stupid Baker plays, yeah, that's an interesting team. So I like Tampa.
Like their defense is sneaky good.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys that were
Ryan Neal, like they've got people in that secondary, and then you've got the Levante Davids, you've got the Shaq Fritz, you've got you've got people. Vita Vea, man, you've got people. That's gonna be a fun one to watch. I think that's the reason why I want one of the reasons why I wanted it for the background. I figured let's remove the Broncos, let's remove the Chargers from the equation. What are the games we'd be interested in watching? I think it's Commanders by far.
Oh, this one, yeah, definitely the most fun. And look, I have no rooting interest. I just feel Tampa Bay. It's just one of those sleeper teams. I think this line is disrespectful for the Bucs. Like, they should be a lot more heavier favorites. Like, I get it, the Commanders are the fun team, but just because they're the fun team does not mean they're the winning team. Tampa Bay, I think, can win this game.
And that takes us to what will now be I think it's a Monday night. Well, no, it was always going to be a Monday night football game, but it's been moved to Arizona, which sucks for the Rams because, you'd have no home field advantage in the playoffs, at least for this game. I think if they win, depending on who wins in the other games, we'd see what happens. But no, they'd still be. I think this would be their last home playoff game, unless something really weird happens. But they have to host. And I use that term lightly because, again, they're going to be in Arizona, but they have to host the Minnesota Vikings, who are coming off of a crazy Week 18 loss to the Lions. It was a game where you want to throw it out. It kind of wants you kind of want to do the bury the game and never talk about it. And I don't Kevin O'Connell, we've given him a lot of credit, and I think he's going to use this as fire for how we're going to bounce back, because he's got to figure out a way to avoid having Darnold see ghosts. And I don't know what happened exactly with Sam Darnold. If this was like the real coming back to earth moment for Darnold, because he had been playing pretty well. Like, I think 2 weeks prior, he put up 5 touchdowns. So the fact there were 4 touchdowns, the fact that he had such a game against the Lions defense, which isn't even really that good because of the injuries that they've had, it's hard for them to generate pass rush, and they were doing it. It's going to be interesting, because now you've got to face the Rams, whose defense is finally starting to click. But one thing that you do have going in your favor is that if you can find a way to, I don't know, triple cover Puka Nacua, the Rams offense really does not exist. Like, literally, that's all that Stafford has. Like, he's got Kyren Williams, and Kyren Williams is an underrated top 10 running back in the league. But outside of that, Cooper Kupp is mainly a blocker. Who else is really on this team for them to throw to? So if you can find a way to stop Puka Nacua, and Brian Flores has been spending the entire week just trying to figure out ways to stop Puka Nacua. If they can stop Puka Nacua, the Vikings can win this game, because their offense matches up against the Lions defense decently well. The Rams defense decently well. The Rams defense, though, has been clicking, has been starting to get into that groove. They have been getting a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. So if you got to get the ball out quickly, thank God you've got TJ Hawkinson. Why the Vikings last week were not throwing to TJ Hawkinson as much as they should have, I don't know. They would get into the red zone. They would get really close to goal line, and they would be trying to throw to Justin Jefferson. And I'm like, I get it. It's the best wide receiver in the league, or number 2 if you want to say Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in the league. But you have this giant tight end who is one of the best tight ends in the entire league. Why aren't you throwing to him? What was going on there? I really need to know what was that game plan, because this is going to be a situation where to what you were saying multiple times, 7 is more than 3. And it's a Rams offense that has been forced to settle for 3 multiple times, a lot of games. But the crazy thing is that they've still won those games. And yeah, it may have been against, not as good teams. But if you're the Vikings, if a couple of those times you get 7 instead of 3, and you force the Rams to get 3 instead of 7, that's an 8-point spread. That's an 8-point difference. And that can win you a game, especially late in the game, when if you're up by 8 points, that is a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. The Rams have to throw. And you've got the DBs, you've got Andrew Van Ginkel, who can make interceptions or who can make the tackles inbounds and force McVay to have to figure out what he's going to do with clock management. That's the key to the game for the Vikings. So if they can get 7 instead of 3 and not have to settle for field goals, or be idiots and go for it on 4th down sometimes. Like, why would you do that against the Lions? He's gonna, Dan Campbell's gonna be like, I don't believe in 4th down. 4th down is 1st down for me. So you got to find a way to do that. But if there's a reason why there are 2 teams listed here that are the away team but are favored. And there's a reason why it's the Vikings. There's a reason why it's the Chargers. There are 2 teams that can definitely get the job done. I'm going to take the Vikings. I think This one's an interesting one because I know how much you love and respect Sean McVay. So it'll be interesting to see if we pretty much end up in lockstep, with the exception of Bills Broncos.
Oh man, but you know how much I love KOC. I've been on the
I got
KOC
that.
as
That's
coach of
what
the year.
I'm saying.
Yeah, this is a tough. It's like, which chick do I like more, but the side chick or the main chick? It's just like, KOC's been my side chick this season. I've been pushing that for him hard, and Sean McVay is my main chick. I'm like, oh, you're great, love you the most, but yeah, no, but the Ram.
When you think about having that problem, who's got it better than you, Chase?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody.
That
But
dumbass.
but yeah, no, the Rams offense, like they'll just, like you said, will have those first halves unwatchable, can't do shit, won't do anything. And this is like the one team where it's like you can't do that against. Like, yeah, they had that Thursday night matchup, but I always felt like it was a short week. Vikings were coming off an emotional loss to the Lions, and now it's almost similar. This time it's a longer week, and it's another emotional loss to the Lions. So does history repeat itself where the Vikings, Dan Campbell said it to O'Connell after the game, see you in 2 weeks. And the Rams have been using that as motivation. See you in 2 weeks, see you in 2 weeks, and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, like there is a lot of emotion for the Rams in this game, especially with the fires, and the Rams might be carrying a lot of emotion and trying to win for LA strong and everything. But I just think the Vikings overall are just a better team. Like the Rams is just like it's great that they hit on this draft class, that almost every player that they've drafted has just been home runs and day one starters and key contributors. And it shows like that this Rams front office is really good at their job, not just at acquiring big name stars through trade like they've done in the past, but obviously they can draft really well. They got Jared Verse. They traded up for Braden Fisk. They got that Kobe Durant kid. They got in a lot of really, really good players. And even last year's draft where they found, these gems and diamonds in the rough. It's just more, I look at the Vikings and I'm like, they have a lot of guys that like step up when they need to step up. It's all on Sam Darnold. Like if Darnold just plays to what he can do, you win football games. That's just pretty much it. When I felt KOC called a horrible game against the Lions, like there's so many times where it was just like, if you just kick the field goal here, like you would be up in this situation, or you're down and you're not trying to force the ball to Justin Jefferson. You didn't even try to find a way to design a play for Jordan Addison. You were just like, and even your number 3 wide receivers that have stepped up, you weren't even trying to find them on the balls. Like, or like you said, use TJ Hawkinson at all in the game where it's like, hey man, Hawkinson, he knows a lot of these defenders on Detroit pretty well. And stuff. So yeah, to me, I was just like, man, it's one of those weird. It was one of those weird bad KOC games. He doesn't have many of them, but it was one of the weird ones. So, but I do think that the Vikings, that this is a get right game for them. I think they'll win this game against the Rams. It's just the Rams. It's just they're too inconsistent. I can't really choose them right now. I really can't. Like maybe they win based off emotion, but they're not like a team where I'm like, oh yeah, if they win, they're going to go to Detroit and carry the same ones. But I think the Vikings also will win this football game. Defensively, they're better, and as long as Darnold just plays to what levels that he can play, they win. That's just it.
So, guys, those are our wild card predictions, but we have a little bit more to talk about. First things first, let's cover, let's do All Pro first. Let's cover the All Pros. So, these are announced, the first team and the second team All Pros. Let me expand this a little bit. There's a lot of names to talk about, or a lot of names to highlight. There are some really great players on here, and a couple of the standouts. I mean, if you were an LSU fan, so basically if you were Romeo, what a great thing to see with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson on here. But I don't know if I necessarily have any qualms about the first team selections. Like everybody that's on here, kind of, it feels right. Like Lamar, and in a way, maybe this could be telegraphing what's going to happen with the MVP race.
It pretty much telegraphed. I told people this. The schedulers really helped out with Lamar Jackson because Lamar played in 2 big primetime games back to back. compared to Josh Allen, who was like, oh, you're in the morning slate with a bunch of other teams and stuff like that. Lamar had that Christmas Day game. And if Lamar stunk in that Christmas Day game, that would have helped Josh Allen, but it didn't. He was phenomenal. And then that Saturday game where the Ravens had nothing to play for, besides the fact that, oh, we can just clinch the AFC North. But I think they were going to clinch it regardless if they won that game or not. Lamar, once again, put on the show. So it was one of those, it was a really tough ask for Josh Allen. I feel bad for him. Like, he definitely could win MVP. But when Lamar has a way better season than his last MVP season, you got to give it to him because it would make no sense. Like, how does a guy that, everyone was saying, oh, no, we don't know, blah, 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 and he turns out to be much better than before. So, yeah.
Yeah, and on second team, I mean, when I was first typing this out, I was like, okay, so Brock Bowers first team, that kind of makes sense. I was like, who would be the second team? I was like, who? Like, it can't really be Laporta. And then I'm looking over, and I'm like, oh, George Kittle, just reliable as always. Everybody else on San Fran went to shit in multiple ways, and he missed some games too. But when he was on the field, he was an absolute difference maker. And you could tell when he wasn't there and Brock Purdy was like, God damn it, where's George? Like, what? I really need George Kittle. But a lot of these, with these O-line, actually, you know what? I lied. There are a couple things that from the first team All-Pro that I'm like, wait a minute. What in God's green earth is Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey doing on here as first team compared to Frank Ragnow, at least? Maybe not Quentin Nelson, but Frank Ragnow for Detroit absolutely should be on the first team All-Pro versus, like, Casey did nothing. Like, they really did nothing. And maybe you want to say, they gave Pat a lot of time to throw and they kept him upright. He didn't take that many sacks. Like, okay, but like, they could barely run the ball also. Like, they could not really do much of anything on offense to the point that they are one of the historically bad or good, depending on how you look at it, one-score game winners in the history of the NFL. Like, it's, if they showed all of the, what was it, games that are decided by one score, and it was all lost like 3-11, 3-3 or 3-13, 2-14, like all this stuff, and then randomly the 15-2 Kansas City Chiefs. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And realistically, that last game, that doesn't even really matter. Like, the grand scheme, like, yes, your O-line is playing, but like, they were subbing in and out very frequently. So that part, I don't know if there's that much, like, that part of it is a little weird to me. But for defense, I do like a lot of these defensive picks. Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson did absolutely gangbusters for their teams. Like, Myles Garrett was like the standout person on the Browns. But him and Greg Ward are really the only two things, and Jerry Jeudy coming along. But like, Jerry Jeudy ultimately just had a Jerry Jeudy season. Like, if you look at the numbers comparatively with Denver, number of games played, all that kind of stuff, realistically, it's just a Jerry Jeudy season. But, he had the break. He had that huge 200-yard game against Denver when he's not being covered by Pat. He's being covered by cornerback 3 and 4, actually, because Riley was out that game. So a lot of people touted him, but really it's Myles Garrett and Greg Ward. That's all they have. And in a situation where, actually, we can talk about it now, the Deshaun Watson re-tears the Achilles, or it was Achilles or ACL, but re-tears Achilles that caused him to miss the end of the season. It's a situation where you're going to be eating this cap, and this team is not going anywhere. I'm going to be really, really interested if Cleveland does something, a bit of a fire sale, and says, okay, let's trade out some of these guys, get picks back. Especially because if I'm Cleveland, I'm not even asking for 2025 picks. I'm asking for 26 and 27 picks. If I can get, if I'm looking at somebody going, hey, look, I know Myles Garrett is older, but you see what he's still doing. Here's the thing. I don't want a first round in 2025. I want a first round in 2026. Teams may be a little bit more comfortable trading for Myles Garrett, taking on his contract and his age, and going, well, yeah, but I'm not giving up the 25 pick. I could still compete in 25 if I hit on the draft in 25. I'll worry about 26. That's 2 years from that's over a year from now. I'll wait for that then. And maybe that's what you got to do. And while you try to get out from underneath the cap hell that you put yourself in, giving Deshaun Watson the contract that you did. But I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with Myles Garrett, Greg Ward, maybe even David Njoku this offseason. I mean, I would love to have, even though he's 28, I would love to have David Njoku as the tight end.
He's a beast. Yeah, no, Njoku's good. Like, I think a lot of teams that need a pass catching tight end, he's the guy for sure.
But this is what I was talking about when I was saying, you know, I was told that this Washington defense wasn't really that good. I'm seeing linebackers on here that play for Washington. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wait a minute. I was told this wasn't that great of a defense. But if you're making second team all pros, there's got to have enough pieces somewhere that these guys looked good, especially when you've got, you know, a second team all pro is Andrew Van Ginkel, who played standout as a defensive end. He was tied with Nick Bonito, and that's why they're both on here. But Andrew Van Ginkel getting interceptions, getting sacks, tackles for losses, doing great work for Minnesota. So I was wondering, are there names on here that you think should from second team should be first team, or are there names that you feel were snubbed from this list?
I think Jalen Carter should be first team over Chris Jones. Chris Jones is great. I'm not Chris Jones, but this season Jalen Carter was terrific. Yeah. Like as an interior defensive lineman for the Eagles, he was phenomenal. And I'm just shocked that he's not first team. He's like the one guy where I'm just like, maybe he should have definitely been a first team all pro type of guy, to be honest. Like, over a Chris Jones, to be honest. I don't know how Austin Eckler got on here as a kick returner. Like, he only had like that one where they're just looking at stats and they're like, oh, look at Eckler's kick return stats. He's been good. I think there's a lot of other kick returners that are way more justified than Austin Eckler. Granted, kick return, it's harder for these players to, you know, get the ball with this new kickoff rule. So, you know, I guess Eckler, in terms of stats, outperformed a lot of other kick returners that are way more valuable. But yeah, Eckler's the only one where I'm just like, I'm with you. I think that Creed Humphrey should be second team. Frank Ragnow should be team all pro. And then I don't know, I feel Hamilton a first teamer than McKinney. I know McKinney tied with Kirby Joseph for the interceptions, but I think Hamilton is a better player overall and, you know, does a lot more, maybe because he did miss some time this year. That's why they're kind of punishing him a little bit. But other than that, not really too much complaints off this all pro list. I think they got most of the guys, to be honest. Yeah, I think they got most of the guys correct for the most part. A lot of the guys, like Quentin Nelson, he's just always going to be there. They just like him. Like he does like a little bit of everything and stuff. He's always going to be there. Zaire Franklin getting the shout's pretty nice. I didn't even see him on the list from what I saw, but yeah, shout out to him. He had a really good season as a linebacker for them and stuff. But yeah, not really too much complaints when it comes to all pro this year. Normally there's like a lot of guys where I'm like, oh, why did this guy not make it? But I think the voters did the right things with a lot of these players and stuff. Happy to see Derwin James back, the only Chargers representative. Played tremendous this season, so I'm very happy to see that. Frankie Luvu, like honestly, he's also shocked that he's on the list because I think he's been one of the more underrated players in the NFL for quite some time during his time with the Jets, and then especially his time in Carolina. And, you know, playing with a guy like Bobby Wagner, him and Van Ginkel, they're really not like their positions. They play kind of everywhere on the field. Like Van Ginkel is more of a linebacker than defensive end. He just gets sacks when he lines up at defensive end. So it's like, you got to find a way to make that position list. Like, I don't know, maybe label them how like the football guy, how they do on the depth chart, like Jack and all that other stuff. So like that's their position. But yeah, not too much complaints, to be honest, on this list.
Let me ask you this, because from the tight end position, George Kittle, 15 games, 94 targets, 78 catches, 106 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Trey McBride, 147 targets, 111 catches, 1,146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, I understand that the touchdown differential definitely favors George, 8-2. But with the sheer number of targets and receptions and their level of importance to the team, do you think maybe Trey McBride should have been second team versus George Kittle?
No, because with tight ends, you also got to factor in run blocking. It's not just catching the ball. Like Kittle does everything. Kittle does a little bit of everything. Where McBride's great, don't get me wrong, but you gotta look at most of the time. It's just like a bunch of dump off passes that Murray is doing to him. It's not like that's where it's like you gotta look at the film and not just the stats. Like Kittle, if he's not on the field, you feel his presence being missed. Like McBride misses a game, it's just like, oh well, the tight end that replaces him will just get the snaps that he gets. Like Kittle, to be honest, is so important to what the Niners did. Like even when all those guys were healthy, he's still one of their more important pieces. And it's like, I think the voters respect the fact that Kittle throughout this trying season was still a tough player for them and then also an impactful player, while Trey McBride at this moment, stats wise, he's important, but he's not really that impactful for that team. It's not like the Cardinals, like, like, oh man, McBride, like you can't like, no, teams left McBride open all the time and he only had 2 touchdowns to his name and stuff. Only two touchdowns. It didn't score a touchdown until later in the season. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's fun to watch. He's great for fantasy owners. But Kittle is just far more important as a player overall. That, like, of course you're going to give him his votes. Look, Brock Bowers, he's just as important. He put up great career number. He put up some of the most gaudy numbers you're going to see out of tight end. But he got in the end zone. He actually got in the end zone. Like a lot of those games that the Raiders were in was because of Brock Bowers. And you can almost say the same thing with George Kittle. Not a lot of the games that the Cardinals won, if you look at McBride's stats, it's not like, oh, well, he was one of the factors why they won that game. A lot of big Cardinals wins, you can almost argue it was when they finally figured out how to use Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray together. Like that's where it's at. But yeah, I think Trey McBride, stats-wise, amazing. But I
saw some chatter about Trey McBride over George Kittle, so I wanted to get your opinion. I'm with you. I think George, mainly because of the run blocking aspect. Not necessarily like the touchdowns. I'm like, I get it, but like the run blocking, what Kittle does in the run game to open up things for the Jordan Masons, the Guarendos, literally whoever they just get off the street because of McCaffrey's injury this year. The run blocking was super important for Kittle, and I think that's really what differentiates him from the Trey McBrides of the world. But Bowers, man, that was. And we got to worry. You and I got to worry about him 2 times a year. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I think the only snubs people talked about, from what I saw, was Roquan Smith, but he missed a lot of time this year.
Too,
so it's like Roquan Smith, obviously tremendous linebacker, but he wasn't healthy this year, and he wasn't like the same player when he was healthy, but he's still tremendous. And then a lot of people were saying Brian Branch from the Lions, but to me, that means you have to go get rid of Derwin Kyle or Budda Baker. Yeah, and Brian Branch at the start of the season looked phenomenal. If you took the 6-game sample size, Branch was great. But then afterwards, it was just like he's been very inconsistent. I think he's one of the heart and souls of Detroit's defense. Like Detroit's defense feeds off Brian Branch's great energy that he brings, and it was kind of like his time at Alabama, where it was like, yeah, he wasn't the best player in the secondary, but he was that leader. He was that heart. He was that guy that you respected because he could play all different, the Swiss Army knife. He can play all different positions and stuff. So for me, I feel like Brian Branch being snubbed, like one, Kyle Hamilton should be on the first team. You're not going to replace Xavier McKinney. Budda Baker, sure, you probably don't watch Cardinals games, but he's super duper important to that defense. Derwin James was having a tremendous season with what he does for the Chargers. Are you going to really sit here and tell me Brian Branch should overtake those guys? Like, no, I don't think so, like, at all, to be honest. So that's why I didn't understand the Brian Branch. Like, people were like, oh, how did he get snubbed on the all-pro list and stuff? Yeah, I didn't hear anyone complain about the wide receivers. I think everyone was it was pretty much lockstep. Those 6 were phenomenal this year. AJ Brown, he's a game changer. CD Lamb, like, look who he's throwing to, and he still got 1,000 yards even though he got shut down early. Terry McLaurin got his flowers, and then Chase, Jefferson, St. Brown, all were terrific for their teams. Like even though it felt like it was a quiet year for St. Brown, it wasn't really that quiet.
It
It
wasn't.
was
No.
not. Yeah, it was like fantasy owners like I like were pissed at him, but I was like he's doing his thing. He's winning football games and stuff. He turned it on later in the year. Tristan Wirfs, first player in NFL history to be named All Pro as a right tackle and left tackle.
Yeah, yeah. Congratulations to him. Yeah,
And shout out to him too, because he had a lot of mental issues with that. He talked about it like openly, which I thought was brave of him, saying like, because a lot of people say, well, what's the difference? There's a huge difference. There's honestly a huge difference when you switch sides. As someone who's played offensive line, it really is like people think it's easy. It really isn't that
I mean,
easy.
it really, like the real life story of The Blind Side has caught some flack because of, potential exploitative whatever. But like the message from a football perspective of The Blind Side, both the book and the movie, is super important because the number of quarterbacks that are right-handed and are just not looking on their left side is really high. There's like only two quarterbacks that throw with predominantly left-handed. Some can do, ambidextrous like Mahomes or whatever, but like right tackle, yes, if I'm gotta protect the guy, but I know the quarterback can see him. The left side, that blind, it really is a blind side. So switching over, it's not. And the thing is, it's one thing to know that, right? Like that I'm protecting the blind side, but it's something else to understand it. It's something else to feel it because anytime that quarterback gets sacked, especially if it's on the left side, like that's my little brother. Like that's the guy I have to protect. I let him down. Versus on the right side, yeah, you're going to feel that. Of course, you're going to feel that, but it's a little bit like, hey, arguably he could have seen it coming. Arguably he could have done something.
That's why a lot of blitzes are always to the left, and that's another thing. Like people need to understand, like your left tackle and your left guard have to be on great communication, understanding the stunts, understanding where they're going to come with the blitzes, because that's your responsibility. And Tristan Wirfs, like the Buccaneers, they believed in him, they drafted him high. They said, hey, we think you can be a terrific left tackle. We don't need to draft another left tackle. Like we don't need to draft one. We think you can make the transition. And it was something that he struggled with because he said, like, bro, like I've been playing right my whole life. Like I'm used to this. I'm used to that. Now you have to change someone's whole mental, like just think about it. If you're at your regular job and you're good at your position, but then your manager comes up to you and says, you know what? I want you to do this now. Just do this because I think you'll be good there. But you're just like, no, I'm not going to be good there. Like there's no way that you can be, because like a lot of people aren't flexible. Like a lot of like you can take it where someone may be one of the best grillers on the McDonald's grill, but then you ask them, hey, go be at the registers. We like your attitude. Or we think that you'll be great, give us great customer service. And they might say to themselves, what? You want me to talk to people all day? No, I'm back here because I don't like talking to people. Just because I show like a good side to me does not mean I like doing that. Like that just happens. And regular people have that struggle finding that just in life in general of like positions and stuff. You see it a lot of times at these smaller end jobs. And so when you think about it, that this is your livelihood, you're getting paid millions of dollars, and a team decides, and keep in mind when they re-signed Tristan Wirfs, it was like, hey, we're giving you left tackle money. We're not giving you right tackle money. We signed you for a left tackle contract. Right tackle contract is not the same, buddy, and stuff like that. So we need you to step up. And it's like, wow. And that's not forever money. Yes, it's forever money. It's totally different than like working a fast food joint job or a retail job or any job that will make you change positions. But it's still a tough task. And the fact that he was able to overcome it and become, someone that is an all-pro on both sides, it's really terrific. And it's cool that he got the recognition he deserves, because very underrated player. Like offensive line's always underrated. Like no one's going to know these players' names and stuff like that. Like if you see their names enough, you're like, oh yeah, that guy's good. Like Creed Humphrey, I feel like he just got first team because he's always good. Like they're just like, yeah, he's good. Let's give him first team. It's not that he's bad. Like Creed Humphrey's terrific. He's one of the best centers one of the best centers in the NFL. Just just give him the first place votes. They're on the winning team. Frank Ragnow, was he out for 2 games? Yeah, man. But I think Ragnow is more important to what the for the Lions than like Creed Humphrey's important, but Frank Ragnow is like he's important. Yeah.
Like, and so if we look at this first team All Pro, you'll notice that 6 out of the 29 names are not in the playoffs. 23 players on the first team All Pro are in the playoffs, but 6 of them are not. And so we have to talk about the rest of the league. We're talking about Wildcard, we're talking about first team and second team All Pro. Let's talk about the rest of the league, and let's talk about some of the changes, because there's a name on here. There's actually a couple names on here. Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, and Brock Bowers, and Jamar Chase to a certain, well, not Jamar Chase, but Bowers, Garrett, Hendrickson all have really big changes on the horizon. For Brock Bowers and for Myles Garrett, you're going to have to be learning some new things. I think actually maybe the Browns might have retained the defensive coordinator, but Lou Anarumo, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Brock Bowers has the entire organization pretty much gone. Because let's talk about some of these staff firings. Now, we've got some big ones. You've got 3 GMs that were let go, one of which was during the season. But Tom Telesco with the Raiders, Rand Carthen with the Titans, Joe Douglas with the Jets. You've got 6 head coaches gone. Antonio Pierce with the Raiders, Doug P. with the Jags, Gerard Mayo with the Patriots, Eberflus with the Bears, Dennis Allen from the Saints, and Robert Saleh with the Jets. And then you've got a bunch of coordinators as well. Interestingly, like, look at this Raiders offense, quarterback coach, O-line, all gone. Shane Waldron, we knew that for a while. O-line for the Browns, offense for the Browns. Lou Anarumo, defense for the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson, you're going to be learning a new playbook when it comes to this defensive scheme.
Oh, you forgot our boy Ben Grubbs from the Seahawks.
Yeah,
he got let go.
For some reason he got let go. That didn't make too much sense. But Gus Bradley for the Colts, and the Niners defense. That one was a little surprising to me, because the Niners defense was not like
not blaming the real problem over there.
Yeah,
they won't blame the real fucking problem.
Oh.
The assistant head coach, this motherfucking defensive guru. This guy that, he's such a genius. He's such a genius, Coach Staley. This parasite that finds a way. Oh.
For me, what I think is interesting is we know the Raiders are going to have a high draft pick, but from a GM perspective, this one actually is the most interesting to me, because whoever gets that job will be picking 101. You have the first overall pick in the draft. And if you are the Titans and you are potentially thinking to yourself, you know what? We deeply, even though he's not a Chargers fan, we deeply appreciate Chase Oliver and his love for Will Levis. But for us to take the next step forward as a football team, we need a quarterback instead of Will Levis. And you are now the new GM of the Titans, not specifically you, but the royal you, whoever this person is. You may have to pick between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. It's going to be an interesting offseason, especially for whoever it is that they hire for that Titans front office job. And for me, I think the most interesting head coach spot is Matt Eberflus's job with the Bears. I think second for me would be probably Doug Peterson's job with the Jaguars. But for me, the Bears one is the most intriguing because the Bears kept Ryan Poles.
Yeah.
Arguably the real architect behind why the Bears sucked ass. But this is the guy that picked the players. This is the guy that picked the head coach. This is the guy that, out of loyalty to Eberflus, did not even want to interview Jim Harbaugh, even though Harbaugh was talking about wanting to be with the Bears. That was his first pick. No offense to the other team in LA, the Chargers. No offense to the Chargers the organization or anything like that, but Jim Harbaugh wanted to be the head coach of the Bears. They didn't even call him. It's not even a question of him calling and them going, no thanks. They didn't even call him. They were like, we're going to stick with Eberflus. And it's like, Eberflus, great, a good DC, but could not get the job done as a head coach. And whoever Poles picks is now going to have to pick an offensive coordinator. There's all these questions about this Bears offense. Caleb Williams being a great second half quarterback, not a great first half quarterback. A lot of garbage time yardage for Caleb in these stat sheets. That's gonna be interesting. But as much as you could be hampered by Ryan Poles, the reason why to me it's the most attractive head coaching job is the sheer amount of talent. You have Caleb Williams, you have Roma Dunze, you have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, you have DeAndre Swift. You have these pieces on offense. How do you make them work? The creativity that can be brought there, that's going to be interesting for me to see. And the other thing is, if you are the Bears and you want to go offense, the Bears DC or second, backup because Eberflus was really the guy in charge of the defense. That guy knows his time is up. And if you're going DC, to head coach, who is it that you're going to pick as your offensive coordinator? That's going to be a real interesting one. So what I wanted to get from you is, one, I know you have a Tom Telesco rant.
He stinks.
I stayed away from that one so that you could have the floor. But besides that, what is your level of intrigue when it comes to the head coaching positions? Because the Jaguars, my question there is Trevor Lawrence just not the guy? That's really the thing. I don't like. The Patriots arguably are the second most interesting over the Jaguars because you have Drake May, you have something there, but and maybe it's not repeatable, right? Like whatever's been going on with Drake May, but you have to believe, hey, this guy's basically throwing to nobody. If I get him somebody to throw to, we're going to be able to do some things. But with Doug P, you go, yeah, I've got Brian Thomas Jr., or with the Jaguar situation, because Doug Pease doesn't have a job. But if you're the Jaguars, you're like, yeah, I have Brian Thomas Jr., I have Evan Engram, I have basically a cobbled together RBBC with ETN and Tank Bigsby. But who's getting the ball to them? Is it really Trevor Lawrence? Is he the guy? And we just paid him. So we got to find a way to make him the guy. So I'm interested, besides your Tom Telesco rant, which head coaching position you think is the most interesting?
Honestly, I do think it is the Jaguars, just because I look at this and it's like this is a team for a guy like Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers OC, who I think is getting a lot of praise. This is a team where they can look at it and they say, I get Trevor Lawrence given to me. And Ben Johnson, he's done the reclamation project of Jared Goff. I've told people this a lot of times. A lot of people don't believe me. Jared Goff, coming out of high school, was the same exact player as Trevor Lawrence. The problem with Jared Goff was when he was in college, he just played in a conference and on a Cal Berkeley team that just didn't get national media coverage. Like no one was talking about Cal Berkeley football. Like they play at 10 Eastern. Like no one's watching these Pac-12 matchups that Cal's playing. It's just how it is. And the games that like Cal were featured, because oh yeah, Goff, he's one of the top projected quarterbacks coming out. We got to show him some love and respect. He would stink. But the thing is, you just got to look at it and you say to yourself, can we fix Trevor Lawrence? Because that's where it's interesting, because if you can fix Trevor Lawrence, and you got to look at what Liam Cohen has done with Baker Mayfield, another number 1 overall pick, and you got to look at what Ben Johnson has done with Jared Goff over the years. That right there is intriguing, because you look at the Raiders situation, it's just shit. Their best player on defense, Max Crosby, he wants to leave. Oh, you get Brock Bowers, cool. Who else do you have? There's not really much else that's gleaming on that roster. Oh, Jacoby Myers, he doesn't drop passes. Cool. Defensively, you have a bunch of guys that you have to pay to keep now. You have a bunch of guys that are going to potentially leave the team, not just Max Crosby, but a bunch of free agents that you have to pay. That's a tough situation right off the rip. The Bears, although yes, talently, they're really, really good, there's a lot more expectations. You're going to Chicago. This is one of the big market teams for the NFL. Doesn't matter how bad the Bears are, they're going to always be in prime time. They have the number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. Do you feel like I can fix Caleb year 2? There's really not much fixing. He had a fine rookie year. It's not like Caleb Williams was dog shit like people were making it out to be. He just got sacked a bunch of times. But now you also have to battle with the fact that, okay, this Bears ownership is serious now. They're not fucking around like they did in years past. The Bears, out of their 106-year history, have never fired a head coach midseason. They finally did so with Matt Eberflus. They said, this guy stinks, we got rid of him. You also have to come into a factor. You don't get to choose your GM. Now, that also plays in the factor with the Jaguars, and I'll get to that too. But you have to be stuck with Poles. Can you get along with Ryan Poles, who has this Kansas City philosophy and believes in all this and all that other stuff? Can you change that culture? And then when you look at the Patriots, sure, it's the Patriots. But are you able to change the Patriot way into your way? Are you able to battle Robert Kraft? Because that's the one thing. Robert Kraft, one of the most respected owners in the NFL, he likes yes men. There's a reason why he could not get rid of Bill Belichick even faster. He wanted Brady over Belichick, and he wasn't going to let Bill go because it would have cost too much money at the time to let Bill go. So he kept both. Brady left. Belichick wanted gone from Brady. That's what happened. Now you have to go battle with Robert Kraft, who is very loose-lipped, has no problem saying out loud how much he does not like what they're doing and everything. So that's what you have to think of as a head coach and stuff. The Saints and Jets we can get to later, but minus Trent Baalke, I talked about a parasite known as Brandon Staley. This guy's the ultimate parasite. I do not know how this guy still has a job as a general manager in the NFL. I don't care that he watches AEW every week and he makes Tony Khan feel better about his wrestling product. I don't care that Trent Baalke is a big time Khan supporter. This guy ran Jim Harbaugh out of San Francisco. San Francisco did not want to let go of Jim Harbaugh. They loved Jim Harbaugh and stuff. And he ran Jim Harbaugh out of San Francisco. This guy is the same guy that brought in Urban Meyer. This guy brought in Doug Peterson. And you saw Trevor Lawrence get worse.
Yeah.
Why do you think that this guy is good? And we've talked about this on previous streams. How many first round picks have just been absolute busts for the Jaguars? Like that they've been traded away, they're no longer on the team. We were talking about that when we were talking about ETN and his decline and everything. It's just one of those things where it's like, this guy stinks. I mean, Trent Baalke's so bad. He gave Christian Kirk so much money that the Eagles and the freaking Dolphins were like, oh, okay, yeah, we got to pay you, Tyreek. We got to pay you, AJ Brown, right away because you gave Christian Kirk a bunch of money, and then he gave Gabe Davis a bunch of money. Like this guy is just one of those guys where it's just like he does not know how to construct a good roster. But the thing that counteracts Trent Baalke just being a parasite, sitting there watching his AEW Dynamite and Collision every week, is the fact. No, that's what I'm convinced. He just goes to Tony Khan's office. He goes, "Hey man, really love that Death Rider feud," and Tony Khan loves it. Says we can't get rid of him. He loves AEW. Dad, I believe Balky's the answer. I always say this: when a good organization like the San Francisco 49ers lets you go, who's the problem here? The good organization,
or you?
I'm just like, if the 49ers, for whatever reason, and I don't think they'll ever do this, if John Lynch gets let go one day, I'm going to say the Niners probably know what's best when it comes to general managers. Because keep in mind, Harbaugh was kicked out because of Baalke. Baalke went behind Harbaugh's back on a lot of draft picks during that time in San Francisco, blamed the roster construction, saying that Jim Harbaugh was losing the team. The team doesn't believe in him anymore. And it was like, okay, then how come Jim Harbaugh's track record has shown that wherever he goes, he changes a culture of a shitty team no matter what? He changed Michigan's luck. Almost immediately. Like he changed your guys' shitty culture because you guys were handing off the Montana and Rice era and saying, "Oh, we're the Niners. We're what you like." Let's be real. Harbaugh never comes to the Niners. Niners fans, I hate to break it to you. You guys are just the fucking Dallas Cowboys. That's it. You guys are just like Cowboys fans, where it's just like you hang off your history. Granted, yes, you guys haven't really done shit, but at least you guys made some Super Bowls recently. So it's not like Cowboys can't even say that. They barely can win playoff games. You guys can at least say, hey, we made it to the Super Bowl, and a couple plays could have gone your way, and you guys probably are one-time, two-time Super Bowl champion. Now, even that Ravens game, you guys probably are a Super Bowl champion too at some point. So that's why it's like Baalke is just horrible. and just the way he constructs a roster, the way he retains guys, or the way he overpays guys. Like, how many times do we, if free agency starts, and we see, oh, this guy's headed to Jacksonville on a epic freaking deal? Like, who was that defensive tackle you guys had on the Super Bowl roster that was a beast? What was his name? I forgot his name. He was like he was a Malik something or whatever. Like, he was really good for you guys on defense. He was the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
You know.
I know who you're talking about too.
Yeah. What happened in the offseason just because he played good in your playoff run? Oh, let's pay him $44 fucking million, and he didn't do shit. That's what they do. They just find guys and they just overpay them and say, "Oh, we fixed the issue. We fixed the issue." Like Jackson. Yeah, Malik Jackson, great. He was great for you guys during that Super Bowl run. But did they deserve whatever contract Jacksonville gave him? No.
Six-year, $85.5 million, $31.5 million guaranteed.
Yeah. Did he ever live up to that? Did you ever hear Malik Jackson's name after that? No. Like they called themselves Saxonville for 1 year and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. It's like, minus Josh Allen Hines, there's not really like much going on when it comes to like, oh yeah, Balky nailed that one. So that's why it's like, when you're a coach, you just got to understand you're going to come into that situation where Trent Baalke is really the head all, but the compromise is you get a package in Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas. Yeah. You're not going to get those packages on any of the other teams. Like the Patriots, it's like, all right, you get Drake May. All right, who he's throwing to?
Hunter Henry.
We're going to target T. Higgins. Are you going to get T. Higgins? No, we're going to target T. Higgins. Yeah, but are you like T. Higgins is going to sign here, right? Like we're going to pay. No. We're targeting him. We hope he signs here. And especially it doesn't help when Ayuk, when he was like, here's your choices. You got to choose between the Patriots and Steelers. And Ayuk was like, fuck it. I'm staying with the Niners. What makes you think, oh yeah, you're getting T. Higgins? With the Bears, it's like, yeah, DJ Moore we paid. We got Rome Odunze. We may bring back Keenan Allen for 1 more year. Okay. Offensive line. We got a plan there? We like spending our money on defense. We might get rid of Tremaine Edmonds and sign Nick Bolton this offseason. Yeah. But what about the offensive line? We're targeting that one guy on the Chiefs. He's pretty good at defensive tackle. But what about offensive line? Charvarius Ward's going to be a free agent. We think he'll pair up well with Jalen Johnson. Yeah, but what about the offensive line? Do we need a backup safety? Yeah, we do. Yeah. Oh, Elijah Molden. He did good for the Chargers. Let's take him. That's the problem with the Bears. You always have to go with the fact that they're going to spend money on the defense first. Mitchell Trubisky had an odd, really, fresh start. Like had a good, has show some flashes. What did the Bears do? We'll sign Allen Robinson. Okay. What else did you do? Rest of it to defense.
Yeah, that's true. And I remember saying back then to some of my Bears friends who are Bears fans, I was like, okay, but like, there's a reason why Jacksonville's letting him go.
Yeah. Like we just signed Allen Robinson. Oh, they also signed Taylor Gabriel too, who was like the Falcons slot guy at the time. But when you see that, and then you're just like, okay, they'll do the bare minimum on offense, but all defensively, they'll go ahead and spend a shit ton of money and replace the old to do. Like
it's so crazy because like even if you want to say like for the Bears, even if you want to say like DeAndre Swift isn't the answer, if you get like any good running back, or you just keep DeAndre Swift and you put the money in the O-line.
Yeah.
The Bears historically are a ground and pound team. Like they're a great defense, and then we run the ball. If you just do that with the Caleb Williams and the DJ Moore and the Rome Odunze, and we didn't even mention his name, but Cole Kmet, which shows how badly they used Cole Kmet this year.
Yep.
When you have that and you have the ability to play ball control offense, you're going to the playoffs.
Yep.
Like that's what's going to happen. Like it's a very easy recipe for success. All you have to do is pay that O-line.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I feel like if you're like a Liam Cohen or a Ben Johnson, those two are like the hotter names. Maybe you lean towards Jaguars. You just say to yourself, we can fix Trevor Lawrence. And that's the hardest thing too. It's not like like Bears, Caleb Williams is going to enter his sophomore year. Do you want to deal with the sophomore year quarterback that has shown questionable things? Yes, Drake May is fascinating. He's been great. But do you really want to try to figure out how to fix the O line and get receivers year number one? Like that's going to be a tough ask. Like that's a tough task right there. Look, Gerard Mayo, he said, "Fuck you. You guys are going to fire me. You're not getting the number one pick. I'm not helping you guys out." Which salute to you, Gerard Mayo. Always looking out and stuff. Doug Peterson, his time was going. Like it was old Yeller time for Doug P. Like I hate to break it. Great Super Bowl win, bud. Glad you got it done, but it was time. Antonio Pierce stunk. Let's just be real. He stunk. Like no one was surprised. Eberflus stunk. You all know I hated Dennis Allen. Robert Saleh stunk. Like come on. Like these guys, they're gone for a reason. Like I'm just surprised we're not seeing Brian Dable on this list or Joe Shane.
You know, I do hate doing this to Romeo, and I unfortunately have. I do feel kind of bad about it because but in a sense he does deserve it after everything after all the shit talking he did to me with Denver, and between Russ and Rodgers, that and then the Nathaniel Hackett thing. If you're the Jets and you're being interviewed, you're looking for a head coach job, what do the Jets have? Like, you did all this for 2 years of Aaron Rodgers, and it went nowhere. Fine, first year you want to say four plays in, tears his ACL. I get it. Okay, fine. I understand that. But this year, what's the excuse this year? And if you're looking to take the job, you got an owner that is shit talking you in the media, shit talking you in the building, asking his friends whether he should be benching Aaron Rodgers, and his friends are the people that he's going to be going to for advice, not wanting to do trades, which granted, I don't think they should have traded for Jerry Jeudy anyway, but like not wanting to do a trade because of Madden ratings or wanting to make changes to the team based off of Madden ratings. You're going to base your team construction off of the Madden over points guy who shows a bias to Dallas Cowboy players. Like that's what you're gonna do. Like that's the solution. Like if you're looking like, yeah, you've got Garrett Wilson, yeah, you've got Breece Hall, yeah, you've got Sauce Gardner and some of these people, Quentin Williams on defense, but it's like, what are we doing? What is the long-term solution here? Because all you're seeing, if you're the Jets, is all we did was we swapped Tom Brady and Bill Belichick for Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. That's all we did. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not Josh Allen and McDermott have the Super Bowl success that Belichick and Brady had, that's entirely irrelevant. What's relevant to here is the fact that you have to play them 2 times a year, and those are going to be losses. Maybe they're going to be close games because sometimes Allen has weird games against the Jets, but how do you, those are the people that are going to be keeping you out of the playoffs, or you're going to have to be battling against to try to get a wild card spot because they're going to beat the shit out of all the other teams that they play. The other 15 games on their schedule, they're going to be playing. And now you're seeing the Patriots knocking it out of the park with Drake May. And you're like, God forbid these guys get a good pass catcher, get an upgraded tight end. Nothing wrong with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper in the grand scheme of things, but they are getting older. Like Hunter Henry did great stuff for the Chargers, but then he came to the Patriots. He's doing unheralded work as a tight end, but he is also getting up there in age. They're going to have to replace him sooner or later. If they get pieces, the Patriots are going to be back in the sense of not necessarily guaranteed Super Bowl success, but they're going to be back in the sense of keeping you out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be in a position where you are the 2024 Green Bay Packers, where you can win 9-10 games and still be playing on Wildcard weekend. I mean, granted, everybody does unless you're going to get the first seed, but you're not doing a home game. You have to travel somewhere else to try to keep the season alive. Because now you've gone up against Allen twice, you've gone up against Drake May twice, And, maybe Tua figures out his head issues but like Mike McDonald can beat you twice. He can beat you once. Even if he beats you once, the Patriots beat you once, and Allen beats you twice. That means 4. That means you have to you got to get around 12, 13 wins. If every other thing is a win, your ceiling is that. Like that's tough. And the crazy thing is that you're in the same conference as the AFC North with Lamar Jackson, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers, maybe now the Denver Broncos. And who knows what happens with Anthony Richardson, and you've still got CJ Stroud. Like, man, that is, if you're the Jets, it's like, who are you going to get? Who are you going to get while you have this ownership?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, and I feel like for each teams when it comes to coaches, I feel the Raiders, they just need to get a coach that will bring a different culture. The Jaguars, I feel, is a more of an X's and O's coach. The Patriots, like, let's be real, Vrabel's going to be the Patriots coach. Like, it's like like anyone that thinks they're going to get Vrabel is actually the guy the Jets should petty hire. Like, Vrabel is the one guy where it's like, if you give Vrabel chicken shit, he will make it chicken salad. Like, look at that. I'm sorry, those Titans teams, if you go back and look at those rosters, they're so bad. And it's just like Vrabel found a way. He just made it simple. He made it work. He made it work with like Ryan Tannehill. Like, I trust Vrabel to scrape 9 wins out of a bad team. Like, that's just what he does. Like, and stuff. And Rand Carrington, he's the guy that, forced Vrabel out of the job and stuff.
And one or two of those wins is going to come at the Jets' expense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the Bears, they need a whole culture change. Like, whatever they smell in Chicago, I feel it's just a culture. Like, no X's and no. Like, that's why I'm like, I don't know if Ben Johnson, like, when people are like, oh, Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen or Joe Brady going to the Bears, I'm like, I don't think that's who the Bears need. I think they need like a guy like a Pete Carroll, like a Vrabel, like a freaking Mike McCarthy, like they talked about. Guys that bring a certain culture, but also know how to win. Like, no offense to like Joe Brady, Ben Johnson, or Liam Cohen, they know how to win as coordinators. They don't know how to win as head coaches. Like, people will shit on Mike McCarthy. It's just like, bro, like, Mike McCarthy just finds ways to win games, even if like his quarterback hates his guts and stuff. And even though if the team, like, yes, it's like not the sexiest salary, but that's what if McCarthy's more of like, we'll hire him, he'll be a bridge guy for like 3 years, but we just need someone that can establish what's it like to win a football game and win football games.
Then you get the OC. Then you get that hotshot OC as the guy.
Yeah, and that guy replaces McCarthy when he leaves, so that way there's still a lot of similarity. And so that's what Dallas was trying to do for years with McCarthy. They were trying to get freaking Kellen Moore to replace him. Like, that's what it felt like. Or they were hoping that Dan Quinn could, replace Mike McCarthy when McCarthy was ready to leave, but then McCarthy kept winning and they had no reason to fire. And then, Kellen Moore said, hey, my good friend Brandon Staley wants me to coach Justin Herbert, and I'm not going to say no at the opportunity at coaching Justin Herbert, so I'm going to go there. So then they lost their succession plan. And then afterwards, it was like Dan Quinn's like, yeah, I'm ready to be a head coach. Washington's calling me over. I'm going to go to Washington. And now Dallas is like, great. We didn't expect this. We were hoping to like get rid of McCarthy soon enough. But McCarthy's like a good bridge gap guy that establishes winning. And yes, it's not the sexiest hiring, but we talked about it earlier. Dan Quinn wasn't the sexiest hire. Everyone wasn't like, oh, Dan Quinn, we could have had Ben Johnson. Imagine this, da, da, da. And it's like, oh, well, Dan Quinn led you guys to 12 fucking wins.
Your point about McCarthy. Like, a lot of people do say, he got Aaron Rodgers and this is, like he got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Like, that's why you're winning. He's winning games with Dak Prescott and he's winning games with Cooper Rush. Like, yes, there is CeeDee Lamb. Okay, I get it. And yes, there is Micah Parsons. Yeah, I get that it's a talented team, but he's still finding ways to win despite who the quarterback is. That's not necessarily, it's not like super a knock against Dak Prescott. Like, he is a top, I would say, somewhere in the 15 to 18 range of quarterbacks, which isn't like nowadays isn't a bad thing to be. Like it really isn't, because football, as much as it is dominated in the playoffs by good quarterbacks, like to our conversation about the Bills and the Broncos, like we're just like even I said, like I'm voting with my heart, not my head. Like I know somehow Josh Allen's going to do some ridiculous dumb shit and he's going to get the, like I know that's what's going to happen. But see, all you have to do is get into the playoffs. If you can get into the playoffs, then it's literally any given Sunday, because to your point, you were saying the Broncos could beat the Bills. The Commanders could beat the Buccaneers. We're talking about that. So all it takes is getting into the playoffs. It doesn't matter how you win during the first 1 to 18 weeks of the season. All that matters is that you win. And McCarthy is finding ways to do that, despite the fact that Dak is not the best quarterback. Great garbage time stats. Great. He can get you, sometimes he can get you back into games, but he's not this like juggernaut of a quarterback that, you know, he is paid the way he is paid. For sure, he is not. But McCarthy actually would be a very interesting choice for the Bears or for the Raiders. I don't know if he necessarily would take the Raiders, but a lot of that is going to come down to who the general manager of the Raiders is, because your boy, Tom Telesco was fired. And I want to know, what are your thoughts about Tom Telesco being fired?
I know Tom Telesco is well respected within the NFL media. I understand people are going to look at what he did for the Raiders. Oh, he got Brock Bowers. Cool. Brock Bowers fell to his lap, just like Derwin James fell to his lap so many years ago for the Chargers. I get it. I get what Tom Telesco does. And I'm just here to tell you guys, the Raiders made the absolute right move firing Tom Telesco. He is not a good general manager whatsoever. And Raiders fans or people in general or the NFL media confused by this one, I hate to break your bubble. Brock Bowers wasn't the number one choice for them. They wanted Michael Penix. And then Atlanta shocked the world and said, no, we're taking Penix. We liked his interviews. Then they wanted Bo Nix. And Sean McCarthy said, I'm gonna take Bo Nix. So then they were left. They were left. They were left with Brock Bowers. They were like, let's just choose Brock Bowers. That's what happened. A lot of people will look at the right tackle he drafted in the third round. Great. Telesco's not really good at late round draft picks. That's been a theme for him for years. Tom Telesco's massively overrated as a general manager, and his 10 years with the Chargers should have shown you this, because during his 10 years, he's had 3 different head coaches. He hired 3 different head coaches. He started off his tenure with Mike McCoy. And then you say to yourself, oh, well, didn't you guys do good like the first year? Yeah, we did good. We barely made the playoffs, but we made the playoffs. We upset the Cincinnati Bengals in the wild card. But what happened the year after that? And then the year after that, the Chargers were bad. They weren't a good team. And it was because Tom Telesco, the GM, did not keep up with the pieces. He did not get guys to come to San Diego. He kept signing guys to horrible contracts. I mean, Derek Cox, Jacksonville cornerback, they signed him. Remember that great Robert Meacham deal? That's Tom Telesco. I'm just saying, when you look at it, it's just like, oh, wow, yeah, he didn't keep anyone. So what happens after that? They get rid of Mike McCoy because they feel, oh, the game has passed Mike McCoy by. You know, Mike McCoy is not really the guy, you know, like, because they had Wisenhunt and they had Gus Bradley, who I also see on the list. They were like really like the key architects of like doing well for the Chargers, and especially Wisenhunt when it came to researching Phillip Rivers. So you say to yourself, oh, okay, well, maybe it's just a new leader. So they hire a guy that doesn't even have like any experience, a guy that you say to yourself like, oh, who did they hire after Mike McCoy? A lot of people just think Staley was the last coach for the Chargers. No, it was Anthony fucking Lynn. They hired a guy.
I liked Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, Anthony Lynn's a great guy.
As a leader of men,
yeah,
maybe not as a head coach, but as like a leader, he was a good guy.
Yeah, but the problem with Anthony Lynn is Anthony Lynn's not like Dan Campbell, where Dan Campbell understands that, like, you know, he's not the best when it comes to scheming. Anthony Lynn thinks he's a genius when it comes to run ball scheme and running game.
Well, like, but do you know what he's doing right now? Anthony Lynn.
He was on Detroit. He was on Detroit last year.
No. So he was on Detroit in 21. In 22 and 23, he was the Niners assistant head coach and running back coach. And this year, he is the Washington Commanders run game coordinator and running back coach.
Yeah, no, I just think that's Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not giving that guy any credit.
The hate runs.
Cool.
I love it.
Cool. You got the coach Christian McCaffrey. Wow, dude, such a genius. Like, what are we gonna do here? Like, what are we saying? But he hired Anthony Lynn, and then hoping that Lynn would be a leader of men and push everyone forward, bring a different style of Chargers football. But Lynn just wasn't that guy, and it was the same result as McCoy. First year, oh, look at Lynn, led them to the playoffs, and then what happened after that? Nothing at all. And what happened after that? Telesco couldn't keep the roster together, and they fell. We wasted a prime. The rest of Phillip Rivers' prime. Moved on from Rivers. Of course, we're going to get a new quarterback. We got to get a new head coach. There was a lot of coaches interested in the Chargers job at this time. One guy named Brian Daboll, who really just like took a raw quarterback prospect in Josh Allen and made him into something. But instead of going with Daboll, they went with Brandon Staley, who looked like, oh, this guy might be something. We're kind of familiar with him. He's already in LA with the Rams. But then you forget that, Brandon Staley, who was coaching the #1 Rams defense, who was on that Rams defense? And like, oh yeah, there was a guy named Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Like, those guys are pretty fucking good at their jobs at that time. Hire Staley. And it's literally the same result over and over again. Like, look, Telesco's not good in the draft. His best draft picks are people that he lucked into. Not good in the draft. 3rd round, Keenan Allen. 1st round, Derwin James. But a lot of the times, it was just a lot of reaches that Telesco would do, or players that he liked because of the school they went to. Notre Dame. If you're from Notre Dame, Tom Telesco's drafting you because he loves that you went to the University of Notre Dame. Off-season moves. He only had one really good off-season signing for the Chargers, and that was Casey Hayward. That was it. The list of Chargers else that was signed, you cannot name me one guy that was as impactful as Casey Hayward was during his time in Los Angeles. I mean, he struck out on Brady. He struck out on Tom Brady. Tom Brady was literally about to come to LA, struck out on Brady, and once he knew he struck out on Brady, what did he do? He gave big money contracts to Chris Harris Jr., who was way past his prime, gave big money contracts to Linval Joseph, who was way past his prime, because that was the money that they were keeping for Brady. Because they were like, we need money.
There's also Joey Bosa. Come on now.
Oh, that was pick 4. It's not like I'm talking about late round picks. I'm not talking about late rounds. I'm not talking about like, oh yeah, Joey Bosa's a top 5 guy. We're at number 4. We got to pick him. I'm talking about when you look at 5 onwards. That's where you show yourself as a GM and stuff. Like, I love Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a fucking reach. Like, you drafted Mike Williams so damn high, and we didn't even know if he was like going to be a full prospect as a wide receiver. At pick 17, that one year where you drafted Zion Johnson, you could have drafted so many other players, and yet you decided, nah. Last year was the perfect example. Addison, Flowers. Oh, let's go with Quentin Johnston.
I was waiting for you to get to Quentin Johnson. He's taking way too long to get to Quentin Johnson.
No, I'm just saying, when you look at like late round picks, like you look at the Chargers, it's like Keenan Allen in the 3rd, during Telesco, Keenan Allen in the 3rd round, couple years of Desmond Keene in the 5th round. Who else? Derwin James, that fell to him at 16. It wasn't like, it was literally like, oh shit, Tremaine Edmonds and Derwin James are falling. We'll just choose whichever one falls to us. And then they got Derwin James at 16. But like undrafted free agents, yeah, he found a lot of good undrafted free agents for us. But then like you drafted Melvin Gordon just because you're like, well, if Todd Gurley's going this high, we have to draft Melvin Gordon, right? No, you don't have to. You don't have to draft this guy. Ryan Matthews, same thing. Oh, well, we got to get a running back, right? No, you don't have to get a running back. That's the thing. When you look at Telesco's drafts, a lot of them are just like, yeah, he didn't really draft well. Like last year's draft, like you could say like, well, yeah, maybe that was one of his better ones with Deion Henley. But even then, like, and that's another thing, always wasting high draft picks on these projects. Oh my God. He would draft Nasir Adderley. What's his position? I don't know. He's a good athlete. We'll figure it out. Jeremiah Tauchu. I don't know. He might be able to rush the quarterback, right? And then it's just like when you look at the players drafted after, you're just like, why didn't the Chargers go there? Oh, the biggest project of them all, 3rd-round pick, Joshua Palmer. Oh, big, tall, physical guy out of freaking Tennessee. Jump ball guy, yeah. Who was picked right after Palmer? Amon-Ra St. Brown, the proven prospect, the proven talent.
A lot of people skipped over Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in the 3rd round,
that's true. That is when
you went with
yeah.
You went with the project in the 3rd round when you were trying to build a winning football team. You didn't go with the guaranteed. This guy is actually going to be a good pro, or could be a good pro. He already has the route tree and stuff down. You went with the guy where it was like, he's big and physical. If he can run routes, maybe he'd be really good. And yes, there is a lot of logic and thinking behind this. But a lot of the times, like the current Chargers right guard, Trey Pipkins, for the longest time, he was our backup left tackle because he was a project left tackle for 4 years.
On the one hand, you do kind of have to thank Tom Telesco, because if he hadn't sucked that bad in those last years, he wouldn't have Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, I thank Tom Telesco.
Think about it. If in, what was it, 21 or 22? 22. No, 21 or 22. Whenever Amon-Ra was drafted, if Amon-Ra is on the Chargers and you've got Herbert and Amon-Ra, they're not losing enough games to get rid of Staley, to get rid of Telesco.
Yeah, I guess I should thank Tom Telesco for 10 years of inconsistent, depressing football. Yeah, that's great.
To your point, like as you said, we've talked about this. You said Jim Harbaugh is the coach of the Chargers from now until the day he dies, in your mind.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to suffer those 10 years in order to get to potentially the promised land. Like, look at me. 8 years. Like, I hadn't even met my wife. I went through that, and now I finally got a playoff game because I finally got, like, maybe that's what had to happen, you know?
No, but I'm just trying to tell people that think that Telesco firing was such a horrible thing. Really, it isn't, because you guys saved yourself 10 years of more misery, Raiders fans, because this is what he will do. He'll wow you with his draft picks, and you'll think, oh wow, he outsmarted everyone. He will pay, like, the one credit Telesco has, he is very good at the negotiating table. He finds ways to manipulate the cap, pay players. He keeps players happy. If I will give Telesco any fucking credit, he knows how to keep players fucking happy. He knows a way, but it puts you in bad salary cap situations. Just from an overall roster construction wise thing, Telesco is just not the best at maintaining a roster for long-term success. Because when you look at some of those Chargers teams, and especially let's be real, the one where it's like we had Derwin James as a rookie, we had all these great players as rookies and stuff like that. Joey Bosa was coming up a big season. We upsetted the Baltimore Ravens with the MVP Lamar Jackson that year, and we didn't even have a true linebacker. He couldn't find a way to fill the holes and saying, let's try to eke out one Super Bowl out of this. That's the thing. When you're there for 10 years and your sample size is 3 head coaches, not a lot of first-round talent that you kept, not a lot of draft picks that you kept, no really notable free agent signings, and you couldn't eke out at least one Super Bowl. And you look at those Chargers rosters, and you say to yourself, how the hell did, like, because let's be real, there's first couple of years he had to deal with Peyton Manning. Okay, that's fine. But then afterwards, there's that gap before Mahomes comes. You couldn't find a way to fit yourself in that gap. You couldn't find yourself a way. And that's on the GM.
Yeah, there's a couple of years. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'll give it to you.
And let's be real. Let's be real. If he had it his way, Justin Herbert would not be on the Chargers. He was big on Tua. He wanted Tua. He wanted Tua more than anything else.
Hey, that's your Alabama guy right there. Come on now.
I love Tua, but I was a big, my Herbert man crush goes back to when I saw him as a junior in Oregon. And no greater words were said after he won his stupid little bowl game. And then later on, they asked him, Herbert, are you coming back or are you going to the draft? And he says in his Justin Herbert way, no, man, this is a great team and I want to keep winning with them. And I think I'm coming back for my senior season. And I was like, thank God. And then thank God Joe Burrow decided to have one of the, ascend to one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time. And it led to Justin Herbert being there because I always wanted Herbert as like the next guy. I loved Herbert. Like he, yeah.
So I think we're in agreement that out of the 3 GM jobs, the Jets is the worst to have.
Yeah, no, the Jets are because see the thing with the Raiders is this,
not because of the talent of the roster, it's the ownership. Okay,
yeah, because with the Raiders, you know Brady's going to help you out.
There's going to be a lot. If we had a choice, if it was like you or me, right, and actually this is perfect because it's the two of us, and there's 2 positions open, and each one of us had our choice of which one we would want. Do you want the Raiders or do you want the Titans?
I think I would go with the Titans for right now, just because one,
I think we'll do the same.
They're building that great new stadium. It's going to be sick. 2, Tennessee has become a hotbed for off season, so like players are going to like playing there. 3, I get the number 1 pick, so I get to choose my guy, and I get to die on the sword if I want Shador or if I want Cam Ward. But also, I feel like it's a better roster to build and maintain compared to the Raiders. It's just like, I don't know, the Raiders, it's just like, it's such a mess of an organization. I still have to deal with with freaking Mark Davis. Like, I'm just like, oh man. Like,
here's an interesting question. Let's say you and I were, because I'm with you with the Titans. Let's say, even better. Let's say they're hire both of us. As co-GMs. Would you be intrigued or interested in this idea? Similar to what Chicago did, trade the 101 for 2026 first, 2027 first, and look at it from the perspective of, I know if I suck for the next 2 years, let's say we have 5 or 6 year guaranteed contracts, we're going to be there, like we're not going to get fired. Okay. We know that we're going to suck for these next 2 years, and by getting these 2 extra first round picks each year, we have 2 cracks to potentially get someone like an Arch Manning in 2027. Because that's a real question that the Titans are going to be asking themselves. Do I want Shador, Cam, or do I potentially want to try to get Arch down the road? Because they showed the Bears, the Bears pulled it off.
Yeah.
The Bears pick from what's it called from this year is the first round pick. You could even say to the team, I don't even want your 2026 first. Give me your 2027 first and your 2027 second. I'll even take like your 2026 second. Plenty of teams are going to be like, I can get 2 first round picks, including 101 in 25. And I can keep my first round in 26. You're thinking to yourselves, wow, I can get the quarterback, and maybe if depending on where I was originally going to move up from, I could potentially get Travis Hunter if he falls, or I could get Tet McMillan.
It's a very interesting dilemma, but for me, I look at this Titans roster and I just look at the AFC South and I say to myself, we could potentially win if we get a quarterback in right now. That defense is not that bad. I would stick to my guns, choose which quarterback I like out of this draft class, and hope they're a game changer instead of like playing the wait and see game and then becoming, because the thing is, we also got to think about like all this other stuff, like money, how much money is going to the new stadium, season tickets and stuff. We don't want to open a new stadium. There's no fucking fans. Like, what the hell is this? Like,
hold on. What if, and we were talking about this not too long ago, what if you trade the picks, and let's say for whatever, even if it's a trade and sign, something like that, you figure out a way to pull it off, Sam Darnold. Because here's the list of free agent quarterbacks. It's not pretty, but you've got Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Brissett, Heineke, Mariota. That would be hilarious. Stidham, Drew Lock, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. There's a couple names out there to potentially drag you along 1 year, maybe 2 years, if you want to. That make you a little competitive, not too competitive. Then you've got the other.
Why don't we just tell Bryce Callahan, hey, do you want that Jake Browning kid, the backup for the Bengals? Like, should we just trade for him, and then we can figure out if you're going to suck or not if we trade this 1-1 pick? Because did he not play good when he was with them? I mean, that's what I'm saying. So it's tempting. It's just more of like, are you guaranteed that you would suck again this much? Like, because like getting the number 1 overall pick, like, let's be real, the Bears got lucky with that. It wasn't like that was a guarantee.
The thing is, if you think about it, you could then in 27, if you have 2 first-round picks in 27, send them both for the 101.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But what if a team that sucks is 1-1?
That's fair.
They also need a quarterback. Like the Giants are going to just be like, no, we want Arch. We're good.
But I mean, think about it. This is the decision making that for the Carolina Panthers potentially costs what's his name his job, because the general manager that made the trade with Chicago was Scott Fitterer. He's not the general manager of the Panthers anymore. It's Dan Morgan or Morgan or something like that. So like these the and that guy was the assistant general manager, and before that he was from 2018 to 2020 he was the Bills director of player personnel. But Scott Fitterer was the GM of the Panthers 21, 22, and 23. These are the decisions that change a franchise, and these are the decisions that's going to be in front of whoever is this Titans GM. That's one of the reasons why I'm asking you this. It's a fun thought exercise, but also really going to be something that the guy could make.
I think Shedeur is literally the guy that you would pick just because of name value alone. But I do like Shedeur Sanders. I feel Cam Ward is more of a let's draft him, have him learn. Like that's why, like if you're the Giants, you're just hoping Cleveland doesn't get the thought of Cam Ward in their mind, because I think Cam Ward is a guy that has shown he's gritty, he's tough. Very similar to Michael Penix when it comes to like he's gone through a lot of adversity, different adversity. Penix was more of the injuries, but Cam Ward is more of like this guy was a 0-star guy. He played at some D2 school in San Antonio, found his way to one of the more prestigious football universities and the University of Miami, and was the leader of that team. And really, to be honest, that team didn't go far was because they didn't really have the cohesion that a team that's been playing for a long time together. It was just a bunch of, we'll get 3 guys that are on the top of the Blintikov, and we'll get a good quarterback, and this will work. And it doesn't work like that all the time. Like that works in high school. It doesn't work in college a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But like Shedeur, he just brings that swagger, that pizzazz. And what I like about Shedeur, he brings like a certain grit that I feel the Titans are missing. Like they're missing that kind of like I feel Shedeur is going to piss off a lot of people for no reason and stuff, but I feel like he's kind of something that Tennessee needs. While with Arch Manning, because if we do this move, I just feel it's like we're putting so much pressure that just because his last name Manning, he's going to be good and stuff. And I think Arch is going to be great. I think he's actually going to have a similar career path to Peyton, where his rookie year he's going to look rough and people are going to overreact and be like, oh, he got that good. And it's like, yeah, let's not forget Peyton Manning for like 28 interceptions his rookie year. So calm down and stuff. But I feel like when it comes to Shedeur, I feel he's the guy that you bring in and you say, and not only that, you say to the locker room, hey, we're here to win, guys. So like, I don't know what you guys are thinking about, but we want to win football games. Like, because I would have to be in the situation if I'm trading with that team. It's kind of similar where it's like, well, this team suck enough, but also be just as quarterback needy as us,
right,
to give us these picks for Shedeur Sanders. Like that's where I would trade with the team. If the Giants came calling, Joe Shane, he goes, hey man, I really like Shedeur Sanders. Well, we like him too. Well, how about we do this, and this? The trade that you gave, I'd be all like, yeah, you guys are going to be bad no matter what. And you guys are not going to be as quarterback needy because you guys are taking the guy we want. But we see like 3 or 4 other guys in this upcoming draft that we say, we could take a swing at them too. Plus we have extra draft capital. Absolutely. Bam. Then I'll hang up the phone. But if the team that comes to me is like I know it's like, damn, they'll be too good if they get Shedeur. No, I'm not doing that. Or if they get Ward and stuff. I think both guys are great, Shedeur and Cam. I don't really have like a preference. It's like, more of like, if you want a guy that's I think is a very good leader, a guy that can lead you in comeback situations, a guy that can take a lot from nothing, you go with Shador Sanders. If you want a guy that is
Are you?
pinpoint
Wait, hold on.
accurate,
This is a guy that's like publicly trashing his team, though. You're calling him a great leader?
he's motivating them. Yeah, he's motivating them. He's telling them to man up.
That's fair. And you
He,
get
he, it's
and
motivational. His
if you're
motivation.
the, if you're the Titans, I mean, granted, yeah, if you're the Titans, you got the head coach already. But I was going to say, you just hire Dion, and then you just telegraph that you're going to be.
Yeah. Just tell Bryce Callen, hey man, just didn't work. I mean, I'm sorry. Like you're a good guy. We like that you like country music. We need some blends up in here and stuff. Like that's the thing, man. Like why not? No, Dion's not leaving Colorado. Way too much money and stuff.
Nah.
Because that'd be crazy and stuff. But yeah, no, I think Shador would be the better because Cam Ward, he just doesn't have the vocalness. He doesn't have like he's a leader on the field. Like he can will you in games, but Shador is like that overall vocal leader. I think he's the guy that will literally like call out Calvin really like, hey man, go bet on FanDuel or some shit like that. Like he'll tell Calvin really what's up and like try to get the best out of his players. Like he's just authentic. He's more authentic while Cam Ward is more like, oh man, you guys are just making great plays. I'm so happy that you guys are my teammates and I appreciate everything you guys bring to the table. You guys just make me better every day. While Shador's like, man, JC Layton, can you fucking block for me? You're 6 foot for nothing. And then it's just like,
could you imagine some world where, let's just say for argument's sake, Titans don't take Shador Sanders, and then the Browns take Cam Ward, and the Giants take Shador Sanders, and you have Shador with that personality and Malik Neighbors and that personality. Holy shit! And New York media. Oh my god, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'll be honest, it's not out of the realm that the Titans could do something crazy like that. They could be all like, hey man, Abdul Carter's pretty fucking good. Yeah, he's a beast.
Oh my god.
Edge rushers like Abdul Carter don't grow on trees, and
that's true.
Guys like Travis, and they could also look at it like this: Titans, where they say to themselves, like you mentioned, Sam Darnold, or maybe like I mentioned with Jake Browning, and they say, "All right, Bryce, if we trade for your guy Jake Browning, can you or whatever his name? I don't even know his name. I think that's his name with a backup for the Bengals. Yeah. If we trade for your guy, do you think he wins us 10 wins?" And Bryce goes, absolutely. Did you not see what he did for us on the Bengals last year? If you do it. All right. It's going to only cost a fourth round pick. Who are we going to draft in the fourth round? Yeah. Trade for Browning. Go with a guy like Travis Hunter, who you know is going to sell jerseys. He can play both sides of the ball. I think Travis Hunter most likely will be a cornerback. Then they'll put him in a couple times on offense per game and stuff. But hey, you never know. Travis Hunter can just be a unicorn like he's proven his whole life and just play both sides anyways. Like I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility either. But yeah, the only other one I want to talk about here is I feel bad for Lou.
Before we get there, I just want to say one last thing about Tom Telesco.
Yeah.
Don't forget, despite everything that Chase just said, this is the guy that let Josh Jacobs walk. And then also, when he traded Devontae Adams to the Jets, made it the condition of it be it's a third round with it turning into a second round if Devontae Adams is first or second team All-Pro or is on the active roster for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. So many things that are very hard to pull off for an aging Aaron Rodgers, an aging Devontae Adams, when you have Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, McLaurin, all of these receivers that we just talked about when we were talking about the All-Pro. Don't forget that he traded Devontae Adams away for a third-round pick that could conditionally turn into a second, and then let Josh Jacobs go. And to your point, sir, about late round fines and his inability to do it, drafted Dylan Lobb in the 5th round, a running back who has not seen the field.
Wow. Tom Telesco drafting a running back that doesn't see the field. Man, I haven't seen that before.
But
Larry English, Joshua Kelly saw the field, which was ridiculous. But
now, Sir Lou Anarumo.
yeah, I feel bad. He was definitely the scapegoat for the Bengals, and it's really not his fault. I'm just going to say this here. I blame the front office. They let go of too many key players on defense and left this guy with a bunch of skeletons. And we're hoping, oh, can you fix this? And it was like, no, he can't fix this. Like, I feel bad for Lou and Runmo because I feel like they had to blame someone. They really couldn't blame Zach Taylor because the Bengals offense was good. So they went to the next best scapegoat, which was Lou Anarumo. But I felt that this was a bad fire. I don't think you should have fired the guy that lost a bunch of pieces because you didn't want to pay for them. Felt there was someone else at fault in that situation. So I feel bad.
I don't know how the money would have worked out considering you had at the time the Chase contract looming and the Burrow contract looming. But like, there's that guy, Jesse Bates the third. Probably would have helped out if you'd kept him.
I feel they could have. I mean,
but
safeties don't demand that much money, so I don't understand how you couldn't keep Jesse Bates. Like I understand like letting go of like a DJ Reader, Chidobe Owuzue and stuff. I understand that, but you know this for years. I know this for years. Having a quality safety is so hard. Like I feel that's one of the harder positions to fill.
Yeah.
Like for years you had Justin Simmons, so you know what it's like when it's like, oh yeah, when you have that good safety and safeties. They have the best shelf life in the NFL. They can play like 15 years and still be at least at good quality. Like, look at Rondé fucking Barber. He said, I suck at corner now. I'll go play safety. And then it was just like
the crazy thing is that with the contract that Jesse Bates did end up signing, so it was a 4-year, $64 million contract with the Falcons, $36 million guaranteed, average annual salary of $16 million. With the way that the contract is set up, especially because the Falcons. Hold on, I'm gonna get to that, but it's one of the funniest things I've heard. But the Falcons could, due to cap, I don't know what. I'll get there in a sec, but have to cut him. The out is after this year, is after the 2020 season. So technically, a 28-year-old Jesse Bates, if he happens to be a free agent, could come back to the Bengals. There is a universe where that happens.
I don't think
the Falcons may have. I mean, the Falcons may have to do that though. At least cut him. Do part one. Because they are talking about keeping Kirk Cousins as the backup quarterback. And I get it.
It's like, they have no choice.
Yeah, you really don't have a choice. But $100 million guaranteed for the backup quarterback is hilarious.
That's the game.
And I love Kirk Cousins, but damn.
I'm glad Arthur Blank decided to put himself in his own Ring of Honor this year. Oh, that's the funniest thing to happen this season. Him putting himself in his own Ring of Honor. Like, fuck, you're not even dead. Like, I understand if you're dead and you're like, yeah, but no, you're alive. You just want the glory hog for one day. I was like, what the? Why? Like, what made you? Like, I get it, you're the owner of the fucking team, but like, that's fucking ridiculous to put yourself in the Ring of Honor. Like, the fuck is this? I couldn't believe that, but. Gus Bradley, I'm glad we took Old Yeller to the barn. Someone who has watched. I watched Gus Bradley for so many years as a fan, as someone opposed it. He just never improved. He always felt that his teams were like the LOB defense that he had the pleasure of coaching, and it showed. He kept playing his safeties two back. The Colts defense, with the names that they had, were just awful. Nick Sorensen, I'm sorry that Brandon Staley scapegoated you, that parasite. I'm so sorry that Brandon Staley cried to Kyle and be like, I'm just having a hard year. I'm still sad about the Chargers job. Like, Kyle, you got to understand, man. It's been a tough time. And then later on, Kyle's like, yeah, Brandon, you're right. I'm going to blame Nick and stuff. I'm sure this is like a Saleh. Like, Saleh will be great for any of these defensive coordinator jobs. Like, I don't know. I feel like you should hire Saleh. He's a great defensive coordinator. Eberflus, he also would be a good DC for a couple of these jobs. I think that's where Eberflus should go. Go to the Bengals. I think that'll be good for him. I think that'll be a good defense for him to coach. Yeah, I think Eberflus still good. Still good. Would do a good job as a DC. Same with Saleh. I think Saleh will always be a good DC. Like, I think he's a good coach too, just not a good head coach. Like, but The one that we don't have listed that was interesting was Ben Grubbs getting let go of Seattle. Like that was very interesting because I was just like one, you brought him in knowing that he had no NFL experience, so you're hoping that his college offense would translate. But I didn't feel like he was the main reason why Seattle was horrible, like per se. Like I just felt it was more inconsistent.
It was Gino's decision making.
Yeah, like I don't blame Ben Grubbs.
But I mean, to be fair, if you're the offensive coordinator, you're supposed to be coaching that out of him. But
yeah, but hey, man, Ben Grubbs, welcome back to Alabama. I'll take you. I mean, he was DeBoer's assistant at Washington, so you can come to Alabama. I'll take you. But I was shocked by that one.
I thought was kind of interesting was Getsy.
Was he real? Well, he wasn't really the core. It was the Turners. Scott and Norv were kind of took over. Getsy took a back seat to Scott and Norv Turner. Like it wasn't really his job anymore.
Which is crazy because he's already been hired by the Packers as like an offensive consultant.
Yeah, no, like Getsy. The problem with Getsy is Getsy loves his 3 tight end sets. Like he's like horny for those. So like the problem is it'll be 3rd and 7, and you'll have 3 tight ends out there. And you're just like, Getsy. Well,
I mean, if there was ever a group of people to do that with, it's Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying like this was even in Chicago when he didn't have anyone and he was just running through. Yeah, he loves his 3 tight end sets. Like that's just his issue. He just thinks like, well, one can pass block. It's like an extra lineman. One could do this. One could do that. And it's like, it's 3rd and 7, buddy. Like, that's
a 2 tight end set in a situation if you're going to do multiple tight ends on the field.
No, he's weird. He's just weird.
Where do you think Shane Waldron goes?
College.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, he didn't do shit for the Bears. Like, what person's gonna take? Like, first of all, Seattle didn't want him as the head coach. They went outside. They decided to choose Mike Macdonald, and they said, we'll take this DC from the Ravens," and they didn't even give him a look. So the Bears were like, "Oh wow, you're available? Yeah, let's bring you in." And then Eberflus, because he knew his job was in turmoil, he goes, "Hey, look, don't fire me. Me and the wife, we just bought the house, the bees. You saw on Hard Knocks. We love our bees. We love the bee tree and stuff. We can't leave now. The girls, they just got used to their new school. Shane, he's the reason why our offense is not moving." And so they got that Shane Waldron was just like the scapegoat. But I don't think there's any demand for Shane Waldron. Like, what made you think like if you're an NFL coach? And you're saying like maybe Waldron as a QB coach or passing coordinator, maybe, but sure. Like I don't think like you're gonna look at Shane Waldron as like, oh yeah, well if you bring him in as an offense, like he's gonna fix everything. Like he didn't do shit with Caleb. He didn't do shit. Like well he did shit in Seattle, but it was just like Seattle didn't like him enough to make him the head coach. So and that could have been an easy internal hire. The players know who he is, but even Jackson Smith and Jigba didn't like this guy. He was all like. When they asked about him, he was all like,
"Yeah, I love that."
Like, you want me on it?
Speaking of which, if you are a dynasty player, I would be a little concerned about JSN going forward. Despite how great he looked this year and the last year, this was kind of the breakout. And despite the fact that Tyler Lockett's not long for this world, the rumor is that the Seahawks are wanting a ground and pound offensive coordinator. Because I mean, if you've got Kenneth Walker and you've got Zach Charbonnet,
sure.
Probably should be running the ball. It's kind of similar. You know what? It's kind of similar to what they're looking at what Matt LaFleur did. And he was like, well, Jordan can't throw interceptions if he's handing the ball off. And they're like, Gino can't throw interceptions if he's handing the ball off. And it worked out very well for the Packers organizationally. But Gino is not as good of a quarterback as Jordan Love. So the Jaden Reeds of the world, a.k.a. the JSNs, here in this situation, may be taking a little bit of a step back. That'll be
I think sell high on JSN. I think that's a great call, great shout, because I do think they're going to try to run their own Sonic and Knuckles with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Which,
as a poor man's Sonic and Knuckles, it's a great poor man's Sonic and Knuckles to have. I would kill for Kenneth Walker. I would kill for
I don't think it's a poor man's. I think it's on the same level of what they can do because both those guys are tremendous.
I mean, yeah, but like Charbs has gotten great looks when it comes to him being it's interesting. When he's being told he's the starter, he plays amazingly.
Yeah.
He's told he's the RB2. For some reason, it's nowhere near as good. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know what it is, but it's just like maybe it's just in his head where it's like, okay, now they're really depending on me. Versus, oh, Kenneth needs like a little bit of a break. I'm gonna step in, but I should still play very well. No, it's just like I don't know what it is exactly there. But yeah, this is gonna be a fun thing for us to follow along. I know that you and I are gonna be schedule dependent, continuing to pick the rest of the playoff games. And then once the off season starts, I think you and I will be having a lot more fun talking about free agency and talking about personnel moves and things like that as team hire and fire coordinators. But since we are in wildcard weekend here, one last time is our picks or are our picks for wildcard weekend. You and I are pretty much in. We are in lockstep for everything except for Bills and Broncos, and that is me voting with my heart, not my head. So, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of True Picks, where Chase and I do our best to give you our opinions on the NFL, both from a week to week basis, and from a holistic, the entire league basis. So until next time, remember, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will catch you all later.